I bought a pair of noise-canceling earplugs, and the seller promised they were completely soundproof, solving the problem at its source. After I put the earplugs in, the noise from upstairs stopped. 3 days later, the police came to my door and said the person upstairs had been dead for 3 days. Officer Lee took my earbuds, saying he'd help me recover the money I was scammed out of. That night, the sound of a chair being dragged across the floor came from upstairs again. On Wednesday, the door upstairs was slammed shut with a deafening crash. After a long while, I heard the elevator descending, and then the quiet apartment upstairs suddenly came to life. They were bouncing around, dragging chairs and making a grating noise. I called the police. Officer Lee stood before me and went to knock on the door. From behind the door came a man's cursing voice. "Damn it, that idiot." His voice died in his throat the moment he saw Officer Lee. Then he spotted me hiding behind the officer. "You lunatic, you called the cops again." He lunged forward and shoved me, sending me stumbling back. Officer Lee stepped in front of me. "What do you think you're doing? Could you keep it down a bit after midnight?" I asked in a low voice. "Officer Lee, we're just living our lives normally. She's just being overly sensitive." Damn, keep it down at night, will you? It's late enough to be considered a disturbance." "Sure thing, officer. We'll fix it right away." The middle-aged man saw us out with a grin. I knew they wouldn't change. I'd already called the police 3 times. I went back downstairs to my bedroom, feeling utterly helpless. My eyes were red and stinging, and my mood had hit rock bottom. I don't know if it's because I called the police, but the upstairs neighbors have gotten even worse. The sound of chairs being dragged around is louder now, a sharp, piercing noise that hurts my ears. How do I deal with the upstairs neighbors dragging chairs all day? I posted this plea for help on social media. Fight back. Go buy a neighborly relations restorer. Problem solved in 3 days. I don't dare. I'm just a young woman fresh out of college, and they're a whole family up there. I'm scared. I feel so pathetic. Too scared to even fight back. Just ignore them. They're the ones hauling coffins. Worried they won't have theirs ready when they kick the bucket. Walking in high heels at night. Must be in a hurry to be reborn as livestock. Afraid flats won't get the job done. That's way too harsh. Who doesn't make some noise in their own home? Well, look who showed up. The pallbearer. Did the whole family drop dead? Dragging coffins around all day, every day, wearing high heels to get up in the middle of the night, in that much of a hurry to be reborn as livestock. I paid no attention to their squabbling. I have to admit, what they said was pretty low. But it did make me feel a bit better. That family is really digging their own grave, aren't they? Is walking in high heels all the time just practice for their next life as a beast? Thinking that way, the noise from upstairs didn't seem so grating anymore. Why bother arguing with people who are on their way out? They might be gone tomorrow. A new message suddenly popped up. Interested in some noise-canceling earplugs. My interest was instantly piqued. I replied, noise canceling. Absolute silence. It solves the noise problem at the source. I have to admit, I was tempted. I've bought plenty of earplugs before, and none of them could block out the thumping vibrations from the kid running barefoot upstairs. "How much?" I asked. "1,000. That expensive?" I hesitated. I had just graduated, rented a place, and started working. I had to pay a full year's rent up front, plus a 5,000 deposit. I only had 2,000 left to my name. Perhaps because I hadn't replied for so long, he sent another message. Not satisfied. Full refund. The harsh, scraping sound of a chair being dragged across the floor upstairs made my heart pound and my vision go dark. I've only been living here for just over a month. If I leave now, I'll be out 30 grand. When I first viewed the apartment, the upstairs neighbors happened to be away on vacation. The place has a great environment and is close to work. Even though I had to pay a full year's rent up front, I gritted my teeth and went for it. I was thinking I could find a female roommate later to help split the rent. Who knew I'd end up with a noisy neighbor upstairs? I've already spent 30,000. What's another 1,000? I placed the order on a whim. The next day, I deliberately worked late at the office, savoring a moment of peace. On my way home, my whole body recoiled at the thought of returning to my rented apartment. I dreaded the thought of falling asleep, only to be jolted awake in the middle of the night. With that thought, I began to feel short of breath. My heart started racing, and a ringing filled my ears. My exhausted body suddenly went on high alert. It felt like everything around me was making noise. Those grating sounds kept drilling into my ears, into my mind, until my head felt ready to burst. The earplugs I ordered yesterday arrived at the office today. I put them in right at the door before heading back home. The moment I opened the door, the harsh noise from upstairs seeped faintly into my ears. I was a bit disappointed. These earplugs worked about as well as the cheap, $10 noise-canceling ones I'd used before. I muttered to myself, I can still hear the noise from upstairs. Was I tricked again? I reached up to take out the earplugs, but then I hesitated. Was it just my imagination, or had they suddenly started working? I couldn't hear a single sound from upstairs. I pressed my ear against the shared wall and listened intently. Nothing. Trying to contain my delight, I went to the bedroom. I stood on the bed to listen for any noise from the ceiling, but there was none. I was happily curled up on the couch scrolling through my phone and drifted off to sleep without even realizing it. The world grew exceptionally quiet, and I slept exceptionally soundly. I had a wonderful dream where my noise-canceling earbuds transformed into a warrior, soundly defeating the family upstairs, who then meekly promised never to make a sound again. After that, aside from the normal sounds of life, no one made any noise. The dream was so peaceful I didn't want to wake up. My body jolted awake at 4 o'clock on instinct. I looked out at the faintly lit night sky from the balcony. This was always the time I'd be startled awake by the sound of the old lady chopping vegetables upstairs. My body had developed a memory. To avoid the shock of being jolted from sleep and the strain on my heart, I'd always wake up just as the old lady started moving around. I groped my way to the bathroom in the dark and hesitated, but decided against taking out my earplugs, because I knew the moment I did, the noise from upstairs would come flooding in, and I'd never get back to sleep. The old lady made the loudest noise when chopping. She'd hack at tofu as if it were pork ribs, putting so much force into it you'd think she was trying to split the chopping board in two. Even chopping a few stalks of greens, she'd wield the knife with a thunderous clamor. Chopping meat was a whole other story. That racket could go on for 2 solid hours. I once bought them a meat grinder, gently suggesting that since she was getting on in years, the machine would save her a lot of effort. They refused, insisting that hand-chopped meat simply tastes better. I'm baffled. What kind of meat takes 2 hours to chop? You could dismember a whole body in that time. I put my earplugs back in and went to sleep in the bedroom until my alarm jolted me awake. The sunlight was bright. I had slept soundly and was in an exceptionally good mood, humming a tune all the way to work. I put them on as soon as I walked into my residential complex on the way home from work. The next day, I finally slept in my own bedroom. Around 1 a.m., I thought I heard a noise. My eyes snapped open, but my ears were met with complete silence. I checked my phone. It was 1:30 a.m. The couple upstairs were about to start up again. Thank goodness for these earplugs. I just rolled over and went back to sleep. I slept straight through until morning, and when I woke up, it was already 10 a.m. Since it was Saturday and I didn't have work, I just boiled some instant noodles. I thought about it but still didn't take out my earplugs. After reading novels all day without a single interruption, I genuinely feel like my heart is in a much better place. I suddenly noticed the show I'm following had a new episode. My hand, about to remove the earplug, stopped on instinct. Right on cue, the kid upstairs started running around non-stop, and a woman in high heels was shrieking with laughter while bouncing a basketball with the child. That thumping sound felt like it was pounding directly against my heart. Just the thought of it made my blood run cold for a good few minutes. The constant torment from them has left me severely sleep-deprived. I went to bed early that night and finally managed to sleep straight through until I woke up naturally. It was another quiet night, but I was jolted awake in the morning by a thunderous knocking at the door. I groggily opened the door to find Officer Lee, whom I'd met 3 times before when filing police reports. Marnie, hello, we need to ask you a few things. Huh? I stared at Officer Lee, confused. Why wasn't he saying anything? Officer Lee noticed my ears and pointed. Only then did I remove my earplugs. A cacophony of wails and shouts suddenly flooded in. The violent contrast was too much for my ears to bear, and my hands flew up to cover them. They waited until I had finally gotten used to it before they spoke. Officer Lee looked at me. Marnie, did you sleep with earplugs in all night? Yeah, why? I looked at them, puzzled. There were over a dozen police officers outside, several more than on the day I had called them. The family living upstairs from you, they're all dead, too? Dead? I asked, my voice trembling. How could that be? Dead? There's blood everywhere. As I listened to Officer Lee's words, I was so terrified that I collapsed to the floor, feeling the metallic scent of blood in the air grow thicker and thicker. I remembered that coffin lid topic on social media the other day. I was just thinking it. I never actually wished for them to die, even in my dreams. I only wished they'd be quieter at night, or that they would just move away. Ugh, I covered my mouth and ran to the bathroom to throw up. The 3 floors above them are vacant, and you live right below. Have you heard any unusual noises these past few days? Officer Lee asked as he entered the room with 2 other officers. The moment they stepped into my room, a sense of calm washed over them. My room was meticulously tidy, lined with soundproofing panels. It was clean, bright, and offered plenty of open floor space. In contrast, the apartment upstairs was crammed full of belongings, leaving no clear path to walk. Bumping into a pile of stuff was inevitable, and every time something clattered to the floor, you could hear it perfectly clearly from downstairs. When Officer Lee came to mediate, he told the people upstairs to tidy up so they wouldn't knock things over at night. They didn't listen. When something fell, they'd just kick it a couple of times. The noise was deafening from down here. The problem is, that whole family is utterly unreasonable. No matter what you say, they won't listen. They wouldn't even open the door or accept any mediation. And no, I was sleeping with earplugs in, I managed to say, finally stopping myself from retching. What kind of earplugs are that good? Officer Lee asked, looking at me with a puzzled expression. He never really suspected Marnie. How could a girl fresh out of school murder an entire family, and not even in a single day? That kind of mental fortitude is beyond someone her age. The day Marnie called the police, he saw her eyes welling up from being bullied. She couldn't even muster a curse word, just kept apologizing to Officer Lee for troubling him so late at night, saying it was her fault for not being more considerate. A girl like that probably wouldn't have the nerve to kill a chicken, let alone a person. Right about then, I could hear the commotion from upstairs, a whole group of people pacing back and forth. I handed the earplugs to Officer Lee. He put them in, but then looked at me with even more confusion, because they were almost useless for him. He could still hear the footsteps and conversations from the floor above. You didn't hear a thing? Officer Lee asked again. No, I said, shaking my head. Then, as if remembering something, I took out my phone. Look at my sleep tracker data. I have a habit of wearing my smartwatch to bed. It records when I'm woken up, and with the audio recordings, I can use it as evidence to report them for disturbing the peace. Officer Lee took the phone. The display showed that on Wednesday, I was in a constant cycle of sleeping for a few minutes and then waking up for a few minutes all night. My total sleep for the entire night didn't add up to more than 3 hours. Then on Thursday, the day my earplugs arrived, I slept for over 10 hours straight. The only time I woke up was at 4 a.m. on Friday, and I was back asleep in under 5 minutes. On Friday itself, I only woke up once in the early hours, and I was asleep again in less than 3 minutes. I went to bed very early on Saturday, which was last night, and slept straight through until morning. I only woke up when Officer Lee came knocking at my door. Officer Lee handed my phone back to me and asked, "Are you moving?" I was stunned, and then a wave of immense dread washed over me. I live on the 25th floor. How on earth did that person get into the 26th? If he could kill their entire family, then finishing off someone like me, a total weakling, would be nothing to him. I really want to move out right now, but I've only got $1,000 left in my pocket. How is that enough to rent a place? Will the rent be refunded? Check the contract you signed with the landlord in detail. A landlord with any empathy would usually refund your remaining rent and deposit. Officer Lee stated that the police couldn't get involved in this. But how on earth could my landlord have any empathy? I tried to negotiate with the landlord, asking to just return the remaining 10 months' rent and forget about the security deposit, but he refused to give back a single cent, only agreeing to let me sublet the place. I'm suffering from the noise from upstairs. How could I possibly sublet a noisy apartment to someone else? I can only move out once the landlord returns my rent, I said, feeling utterly defeated. It's true what they say, being broke is the worst. Let me see your purchase record for the earplugs. I hurriedly looked up the order, but the seller had already deactivated their account. Since I bought it through social media, there was no concrete registration information, so that person just vanished. Officer Lee looked at the 1,000 yuan payment record and felt a pang of sympathy for me. Maybe the high price of the earplugs created a psychological suggestion, which is why I slept so soundly. How could this be? I was stunned. He even promised a full refund if they didn't work. Now that he's closed his account, who am I supposed to get a refund from? Officer Lee looked at our chat history and said, "There's no such thing as completely silent earplugs in this world. You're being far too naive." I'll help you track down the seller of those silent earplugs to see if we can get your money back. Don't get scammed again. The family wasn't killed all on the same day. The old lady was murdered between 4 and 5 in the morning on Friday. The middle-aged couple was killed around 2 in the morning on Saturday, and their child was murdered around 8 in the evening that same Saturday. A sudden wave of anxiety hit me, those time slots, because I was only awake for such short periods. Whenever I came to, my first thought was always about who upstairs would start making noise at that exact moment. I couldn't stop trembling. A terrifying suspicion formed in my mind. The seller had said he would solve the noise problem at its source. Is it that whoever I complain about for making noise ends up dead? Officer Lee tried to reassure me. The police will be patrolling the area for the next few days. Here's my number. Call me if you need anything. After seeing the police out, I was left alone in the empty room, with only the sound of my own ragged breathing. It's impossible. How could such a coincidence even happen? A sudden, eerie silence fell over the room. I hurried a few steps, opened the door, and listened for sounds from downstairs. Oh, it's just awful, completely unrecognizable. I couldn't bear to look for more than a second. That whole family is nothing but troublemakers, always stirring up drama. I wonder who they finally crossed that had nothing to lose. Wasn't it the girl upstairs who kept calling the police to complain about their noise? Do you think it was her? With that pink hair, they look like trouble from a mile away. Like a suspect, I ducked my head and instantly retreated back into my room. I kept opening social media, searching for anyone with the same profile picture or name as the person selling the noise-canceling earplugs, but I couldn't find them anywhere. My mind was a complete mess, consumed by the single thought that my upstairs neighbor had died because of me. So, does that make me a murderer? Did I kill someone? My vision suddenly flooded with crimson, as the bloodied, mangled face of the old woman from upstairs slowly drew near. You killed my whole family over a little noise. I'll haunt you from beyond the grave. It wasn't me. I desperately backed away. The man and woman from upstairs, dragging their equally mangled child, surrounded me. You're broke and still so picky. This time, even if you live in a mansion, I'll haunt you, haunt you. A child's shrill voice pierced my eardrums. It wasn't me. I screamed in terror. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I jolted awake. Everything was pitch black. I took a few deep breaths and, in the moonlight, finally made out that I was curled up in the living room. I must have fallen asleep without realizing. It was already autumn, yet a cold sweat had broken out all over my body. A gust of wind made my hair stand on end. I turned on the light. It was already 1 in the morning. I stared at my own pale face in the mirror. I kept repeating to myself, it's not my fault. I didn't kill them. They brought it on themselves. It's not my fault. I went back to the bedroom and stared at the ceiling, convinced that at any second I would hear the harsh, grating sound of a chair being dragged across the floor. My rational mind knew no one was upstairs anymore, but my heart felt clenched by an invisible fist, and even my breath came in tremors. I didn't dare turn off the light, just as my consciousness was beginning to fade. A dull thud suddenly came from overhead, the sound of the couple hitting the wall. I bolted upright in bed, the blood rushing to my head in an instant, cold sweat trickling down my back. Impossible. The police said they were all dead. I strained my ears, not daring to breathe. Thud, another thud against the wall echoed through the silent night, startling me like a drumbeat. At the sound, my body began to tremble uncontrollably. We'll haunt you from beyond the grave. Their twisted faces seemed to materialize right before my eyes. 3, my hands trembling, I fumbled for my phone. The screen's light, glowing at 2 a.m., stabbed painfully into my eyes. Pathetic, you bitch, you never shut up. The sound of the woman upstairs cursing suddenly erupted, and my already frayed nerves finally snapped. I let out a hoarse scream, and the upstairs suddenly fell silent. In a panic, I dialed Officer Lee's number, after a long stretch of busy tones. His weary voice crackled through the line. Marnie, what's wrong? Are the neighbors upstairs bothering you again? In my frantic state, I hadn't fully heard what Officer Lee said. The moment the call connected, I practically shouted, my voice trembling uncontrollably. Officer Lee, you said everyone upstairs was dead, so why can I still hear noises up there? Is the killer still there, or? There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, followed by Officer Lee's voice, now tinged with a more serious tone. Marnie, calm down. Even if you hate them, you can't just curse them like that. When did I ever say everyone upstairs was dead? Are you hearing things? I'm not hearing things. I heard it perfectly clearly. I was on the verge of tears, pushing myself up to stand. Just then, the sound of a chair being dragged across the floor started up again from upstairs. That grating noise felt like a sharp knife slicing through my heart. I pressed my phone against the ceiling, my composure completely shattered. Listen, you can hear the sound of high heels walking now. Click clack, exactly like before. If they're dead, why can I still hear them? Marnie, Officer Lee called out, his voice laced with reassurance. We haven't received any reports of that nature. The family upstairs is not dead. Have you been having trouble resting lately because of the noise? How is your mental state? Would you like me to help you contact a psychologist? I froze, my hand holding the phone stiffening in midair. Not dead. How is that possible? Officer Lee came to my door in broad daylight with over a dozen police officers and told me, in no uncertain terms, that the family upstairs was dead, all of them, and that there was blood everywhere. I even heard the lady downstairs say they died horribly. That they were completely unrecognizable. Officer Lee, how can you say they're not dead? My voice trembled. This afternoon, you clearly, I've been dealing with burglary cases in my precinct these past few days. I haven't been anywhere near your place. Officer Lee cut me off, his tone growing more concerned. Marnie, are you under too much stress? The noise issue is definitely disruptive, but don't put so much pressure on yourself. Try sleeping in the living room at night. If that doesn't work, maybe stay with a friend for a few days to get your head straight. The dialed tone after he hung up felt like a hand, draining all my strength. I slid down the wall and slumped to my knees. If the person upstairs isn't dead, then what was that in the daytime? Was I dreaming, or am I really having a nervous breakdown? Was it all just my imagination? But the figures of those dozen or so police officers, Officer Lee's stern expression, along with the faint, lingering scent of blood in the air, felt terrifyingly real. The noise from above continued, the grating scrape of a chair being dragged, the click of a woman's high heels, and the wail of a child, all jumbled together. The sounds were more jarring than ever. I shot to my feet, a sudden, inexplicable surge of courage propelling me forward. I had to go up and see. I hurried out of my apartment. My fingers were still trembling as I pressed the elevator button, the moment the elevator doors opened. I practically burst out into the hallway. The motion sensor light was broken, plunging everything into pitch darkness. I took a deep breath, walked up to their door, and raised my hand to knock firmly. The knocking sounded unnaturally loud in the silent corridor. With each rap, my heart pounded in my chest, and my breathing grew more ragged. A few seconds later, an irritated voice came from behind the door. Who is it? Knocking in the middle of the night. Then, the lock clicked, and the door was pulled open a crack. A bright shaft of light spilled through the gap, illuminating the face of a middle-aged man with coarse, brutish features. I could see his face clearly. No wounds, he was bare-chested, and his arms were also unmarked. I also saw that the cluttered living room showed no signs of blood, and there wasn't even a water stain around the doorframe. I took a frightened step back, pointing at him, my voice cracking. You're alive. The middle-aged man frowned, glaring at me with impatience. Are you out of your mind? I'm perfectly fine. What do you mean, am I alive? Coming to my doorstep in the middle of the night, spouting nonsense. Are you looking for a fight? As he spoke, he swung a fist in my direction. Terrified, I stumbled and fell to the ground, my tailbone hitting the floor with a painful thud. What's going on? Who is it? The woman came out, already dressed. The click-clack of her high heels was like a hammer pounding on one's heart, grating on the nerves. Who else could it be? That lunatic from downstairs, the middle-aged man cursed. She's always complaining we're too noisy, acting like a spoiled princess. Does she think living in an apartment makes her royalty? If she's so high and mighty, she should go live in a villa. She's nothing but a penniless nuisance. Now she's bothering us in the middle of the night. She's completely lost her mind. I sat on the ground, watching the middle-aged man and woman. The child was crying, saying their legs and feet hurt. My mind went completely blank. What on earth is going on? Was Officer Lee talking about the whole family dying? Could it all really have been my hallucination? Stop making noise, you'll get yourselves killed. The middle-aged man grew even angrier at my words. You son of a bitch. I shot to my feet and immediately bolted for the elevator. Once inside the elevator, I realized my whole body was trembling, and tears were streaming uncontrollably down my face. As the elevator doors slid shut, I could still see the middle-aged man standing at the entrance, cursing and muttering under his breath. Their door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling out to illuminate the dark hallway, their noise pouring out in a steady stream. I got home and just collapsed onto the floor, staring at the date on my phone screen. Thursday, Thursday. Isn't today Monday? How can it already be Thursday? After unlocking my screen, I noticed the message notification was blinking. I tapped it, and it was a message from the person selling those noise-canceling earplugs. The timestamp showed it was sent just a few minutes ago. So, have you made a decision? Full refund if you're not satisfied. It'll solve your noise problem at the source, guaranteed. I stared at that message, and it suddenly hit me like a bolt from the blue. In a panic, I opened my social media account. The post I had made, how to deal with the neighbor upstairs dragging chairs around all day, was still there, and so were some of the replies. Some people recommended a neighborhood harmonizer, others cursed out the upstairs neighbor, and then this seller sent me a message. I stared at the text, determined to solve the problem at its root. How can you guarantee you'll solve the problem at its source? That's not your concern. If it doesn't work, you get a full refund. I clicked into his profile, took screenshots of all his information, and only then asked, are you planning to deal with the person making the noise? Now, let's not jump to conclusions. We're a legitimate business. We make noise-canceling earplugs. As the noise from upstairs grew louder and louder, a wave of utter despair washed over me. Had the constant noise finally driven me to the brink of a mental breakdown? The relentless noise from above continued, each piercing sound like a needle stabbing into my ears. Covering them, I sank to the floor, completely overcome by uncontrollable, wrenching sobs. I can't take it anymore. I need a break, even if it's just for one day. I leave for work at 6 in the morning and don't get home until 10 at night. I'm so worn out that I often can't fall asleep until 2 in the morning, only to be woken up again by 4. I'm on the verge of a breakdown. I really am about to snap. I can't help but wonder if there's a connection between the earplugs and the death of the family upstairs. I don't know how long I cried, but the tightness in my chest finally eased. Staring at the seller's message, I eventually typed out 2 words. I'll take it, for, if it's all an illusion, then I might as well live in it. At least in the illusion, I can get a good night's sleep. When the order successful notification popped up, I breathed a sigh of relief. It was as if I could already see the quiet night ahead and my dream of sleeping straight through it. After buying the earplugs, I left the room and went to a nearby hotel. I just couldn't stay there today. On my way downstairs, I saw the elevator go up to the 26th floor. My finger, poised to press the down button, froze. The next day, the earplugs were delivered to the office right on time. When I got home from work, I couldn't wait to put them on. As if in a hallucination, I could still hear the sounds from upstairs. Guided by memory, I whispered, how can I still hear the noise from upstairs? Was I tricked again? And then, in an instant, the world fell silent. No sound of chairs being dragged, no children crying, no click-clack of high heels. I could finally sleep, eat, and read novels in peace, just as I had always imagined. But this time, I never woke up in the middle of the night. And I didn't hear a single sound. I thought this quiet would last forever, until Sunday morning, when a loud knocking at the door jolted me awake again. I took out my earplugs, opened the door, and once again saw Officer Lee and several police officers behind him, their expressions exactly the same as in my hallucination. I took out my earplugs and looked at them, puzzled. Marnie, did you sleep with your earplugs in all night? Officer Lee looked at me. Ha! A sudden sense of unreality washed over me. Why did this conversation feel so familiar? Then, Officer Lee's next words made me freeze on the spot. The family living upstairs from you, they're all dead, dead. I clutched the earplugs in my hand, suddenly unwilling to hand them over. I contacted the landlord yesterday. He was as difficult as ever, flatly refusing to refund a single cent. There was nothing I could do. In that moment, a dark thought crossed my mind. Maybe only if the whole family upstairs died could I finally get a decent night's sleep. I'm afraid that if I hand over the earplugs, I'll be right back where I started. What I'm even more afraid of is that I'll never be able to buy these earplugs again. Officer Lee, seeing how nervous I was, spoke up again. That Thursday, you called me and said some strange things. Officer Lee entered the room with 2 other officers and then began playing our call recording. As a bystander, I could hear the fear in my own voice. It was hoarse, repeating that everyone upstairs was dead, and now there was noise coming from up there again. They died about an hour after you called me. Huh, I was confused. The time of death had changed. They died together, I asked. Officer Lee noticed I looked tense but not scared. So he asked, aren't you afraid? The whole family upstairs is dead. Their bodies lay in the room for 3 days before anyone found them. If this were the old me, I would have been terrified. How could I not be? The entire family upstairs is dead. The blood might have seeped through the floorboards into the ceiling above me. Who knows when it might start dripping down. But now, I'm not afraid. It sounds terrible to say it out loud. But isn't this exactly what I've been hoping for? The family upstairs is dead. Finally, there's peace and quiet. I won't be jolted awake in the middle of the night anymore. I won't show up to work half asleep anymore. Make critical data errors, get fired from a promising company, and end up at some grueling dead-end job. I won't be startled awake before dawn with a sharp pain in my chest, left to cry helplessly under the covers. I'm no longer afraid of the threat from the man upstairs, who said he'd kill me if I called the police again. What are you afraid of? I didn't kill him. Do you have any leads to provide? Asked Officer Lee. After I called you that day, I went out and stayed at a hotel. I don't know what happened. Was there any movement before you left? Asked Officer Lee. When I was heading downstairs, the elevator was going up to the 26th floor. I waited for it to go up before I took the stairs down. Officer Lee and the people behind him were all staring at me, their eyes filled with suspicion. Do you have any leads to provide? I clutched the earbud in my hand, a complex and indescribable feeling welling up inside me. If I give the earplugs to Officer Lee, will everything that's happened these past few days just start all over again? Will the family upstairs start making noise again? Is the peace and quiet I've finally managed to get these last couple of days about to be ruined? I held onto the earplugs tightly, not moving and not saying a word. Just then, a police officer came running over. Officer Lee, we've retrieved the footage from the security camera. Officer Lee left with his team. Officer Lee was gone, but the aunties from downstairs stayed. They were gathered at my door, peering inside one by one. Is that her? The one who's always knocking on doors upstairs. She's been calling the police every single day since she moved in. The person upstairs had been dead for 3 days, and she didn't notice a thing. I turned to look at those aunties, who were always gossiping downstairs, saying my pink hair made me look like I was up to no good. They've been spreading rumors that I've done all sorts of shameful things behind the scenes. Because of that, some creepy people in the neighborhood have started following me. If I didn't carry pepper spray with me, I dread to think what might have happened. That day, I called the police, which led to an old man in the complex getting arrested. His family has since doubled down on slandering me. I glared at the aunties outside, quietly put in my noise-canceling earplugs, and muttered under my breath, so much for noise-canceling. Those old biddies are so loud. The door closed, shutting out all the noise. Officer Lee, do you suspect Marnie? A young police officer asked. She's hiding something. She definitely knows more than she's letting on. I had someone check the hotel where Marnie was staying. She checked in at 3 a.m. and left for work at 7 a.m. We reviewed the hotel's security footage for that period, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The night was utterly silent. So quiet I couldn't hear a sound. With earplugs in, I descended the stairs, floor by floor. Hearing the commotion behind the door, I knocked on every floor as I made my way down to the ground level. I stopped at the first floor stairwell and watched the elevator ascend, then I watched it descend, until the doors opened, revealing nothing but darkness inside. Is tomorrow Monday, or is it Thursday? I started up the stairs, but a hand grabbed my wrist. 5, it's the middle of the night. What are you doing here? Officer Lee asked, his voice laced with suspicion. It's too quiet, kind of creepy, actually. Couldn't sleep, so I came out to see if there were any officers on watch. I'd feel safer if there were, I said calmly. You came out to look around. With earplugs in, I froze. I could actually hear Officer Lee's words. Wait, that's not right. From the moment I came downstairs, I could hear everyone talking in their apartments. Your earplugs aren't soundproof at all. The world suddenly spun around me, but Officer Lee was quick to catch me before I fell. At the hospital, I explained everything about buying the earplugs, and also about how Officer Lee had said it was all in my head. I told them the whole story. I even told them that after I realized the noise-canceling earplugs could kill, I still put them on and went door to door, telling each neighbor just how loud they really were. Officer Lee turned and arranged for me to see a psychiatrist. He thought I'd lost my mind. Why else would I believe something so absurd? But just as the doctor said there was nothing wrong with me, several police officers arrived, their expressions grim. I faintly overheard something about a massacre in the entire residential complex. I smiled. See, I'm not crazy. Officer Lee took me back to the police station, confiscated my earbuds, and even assigned someone specifically to track down the account that purchased them. Even though I had screenshotted a lot of information in advance, that person still vanished into thin air, and finally, I managed to fall into a sound sleep in the holding cell. In my groggy state, I heard a loud thud from upstairs. I opened my eyes. I was back in my own room, back to Thursday. The sound of a man and a woman arguing suddenly erupted, followed by a child's wailing and the scraping of a chair being dragged across the floor. I went upstairs and calmly knocked on the door. They're the ones who are going to die. What do I have to fear? The same middle-aged man opened the door, his beady eyes leering at me. You lunatic. What do you want now? You woke the princess again, I swear. You always show up when my wife and I are in the middle of things. What? Are you jealous your sister-in-law has a man? If you're that desperate, I can help you out. You're going to die. In exactly 1 hour. I looked at him, feeling quite pleased. Crazy bitch, the man cursed, slamming the door shut. I casually tossed an ice cube against his doorframe. His door wasn't fully closed, and all he heard was a dull thud before he retreated to his bedroom. Peering through the crack, I saw their room go dark, plunging the interior into complete blackness. I turned and headed downstairs. A message was still flashing on my phone. So, have you made up your mind? Full refund if you're not satisfied. We guarantee a permanent solution to the noise problem. Without a moment's hesitation, I typed out 2 words. I'll take it. Another Sunday. And Officer Lee was knocking on my door. Same as always. I stared at Officer Lee bleary-eyed. You again. Once they were inside, I spoke up. Did someone die upstairs again? Officer Lee was puzzled. He had heard that exact line the night before, when I had called the police with him to report that I was stuck in a time loop and that the person upstairs would die. Who would have thought that when I came over today, the person upstairs was actually dead? We're taking you in for a psychiatric evaluation. Officer Lee and a group of police officers escorted me to the psychiatric hospital. The psychiatrist waved a watch back and forth in front of my eyes, and I drifted off into a drowsy sleep. Have you been caught in a loop? Officer Lee asked. Yes. I bought a pair of noise-canceling earplugs. They seem to be cursed. Whenever I put them on and complain about someone disturbing me, that person dies. How many times have you experienced this loop? Officer Lee asked again. This is the 3rd time. The first time, the family upstairs died. The second time, it was the entire building. And this is the 3rd time. Officer Lee and the psychologist exchanged a look as I spoke. They both thought I was genuinely ill. When I came to, Officer Lee was holding my hand. Marnie, the family upstairs was killed by debt collectors. Your noise-canceling earplugs are just ordinary earplugs. You haven't been stuck in a loop. Debt collectors. I looked at Officer Lee, confused. The light in the hallway was out, and so was the hallway camera. We checked the elevator footage. You went up during that time. And then you came back down, right? I went up to tell them to keep it down. I bought noise-canceling earplugs. I was going to get angry if they kept making noise. I nodded. Later, a group of men went up. Their faces were on the camera. We've already identified the perpetrators. So, the reason it was so quiet with my earplugs in, is because the people upstairs were already dead. My voice trembled. Why did everything go back to Thursday night? Could it be that the constant noise has worn me down, frayed my nerves, and caused some kind of time-slip hallucination? The police have already searched my place and didn't find any clues. Officer Lee looked at my pale face and sighed. I think I'd better take you to a major hospital for a checkup. I nodded. The results came back, and the doctor said that due to prolonged exposure to noise and extreme mental stress, I had developed neurasthenia, accompanied by severe auditory hallucinations and time perception disorder. Those so-called incidents of returning to Thursday and seeing the upstairs neighbor alive were all my hallucinations, or you could say they were dreams conjured by my long-term repression. Thanks to my medical records and Officer Lee's mediation, the landlord agreed to refund 10 months' rent, though the security deposit was absolutely non-negotiable. I was quite satisfied with that outcome. I switched to a less demanding, lower-paying job, moved to a less densely populated neighborhood, and ended up on the top floor. Up on the roof, elderly women would often stake out spots as early as 5 a.m. to air out their quilts and dry crops. their chatter would drift down through the ceiling. Within 5 days, one of them took a misstep and fell. After that, the property management sealed off the rooftop access. However, my symptoms of neurasthenia showed no sign of improvement. I keep jolting awake in the dead of night. Convinced I hear the sound of a chair being dragged across the floor above me. Sometimes, waking at 5, I think I can hear old women gossiping up there. I tell myself it's just my imagination, that those sounds aren't real and won't come back. A month later, Officer Lee tracked me down. We sat in a coffee shop, and he stared straight at my face. "Are you at peace?" I stirred my coffee and looked down in silence. "So many lives," Officer Lee said angrily. "I don't understand what Officer Lee is talking about," I said with a smile. Officer Lee also smiled and placed a photograph in front of me. I was looking at the crime scene photos recently, and I suddenly noticed a puddle of water right outside their front door. "Do you know what it is?" I clenched my fingers. "No, I don't, Marnie, you can't run." Epilogue. I was arrested 6 months later. I had no idea anyone still lived on the 26th floor. The noise had driven the occupant to stay at another property, but he came back to pick up some clothes. He was spooked by a hallway full of debt collectors, secretly installed a camera, and then went back to stay at his other place. The camera clearly captured me using ice to block the door. I lied. The detailed account of the 3 cycles I gave to Officer Lee was entirely fabricated. I have to convince myself first, before I can convince everyone else. I really am stuck in a loop. I know that on Thursday, just past midnight, the debt collectors will come. They'll be banging on the door with knives. If that man hadn't been holed up in his room and refused to come out, they wouldn't have escaped unscathed. I overheard the debt collectors arriving, and I also heard how they'd been swindled by the man upstairs, each of them left in debt. They were constantly at odds with the family living upstairs. I was willing to let it go. The noise was bad enough. But then the man from upstairs started following me. I ran into my room. Luckily, I had left a knife in the entryway that day. I stabbed him in the arm. I was terrified. I felt completely cornered, with no way out. I thought it would be better if they were just dead. What no one knew was that the noise-canceling earplugs were the key to me entering the loop. So, I photoshopped the receipt. The earplugs actually arrived a week ago. But I made it look like I bought them in the early hours of this Thursday, and I've been through the loop 4 times now. The first time, I was completely lost. The second time, I went up the stairs and knocked on the door at 4 in the morning, then slipped away quietly. A group of drunks waiting by the door heard the old woman's cursing, suddenly sobered up, and rushed into the apartment, but I failed. Only the old woman upstairs suffered. After speaking with Officer Lee the 3rd time, I realized I was trapped in a loop. This time, I knocked on the upstairs door before those men arrived. Just as I was leaving, I heard the elevator doors open. I failed again. I'd forgotten about the wind that day, which blew the door shut. The 4th time, I used a block of ice to prop the door open. This time, I finally got my wish. The entire family upstairs was completely dead. Of course I wouldn't admit to that. I just said the ice blocked the door. I only wanted to stir up more trouble. To let the whole neighborhood know how noisy their household is. The sun felt warm on my skin as I walked out of the police station, clutching the noise-canceling earplugs in my hand, my phone buzzing. Someone asked me, "Are they really noise-canceling?" I replied with a smile, "We'll tackle the problem at its root." Story 2. At -70 degrees, I was locked outside by my boyfriend and best friend and froze to death. After rebirth, I won 80 million by buying lottery tickets and built a top-level safe house. When the cold wave came again, I watched them fight over a biscuit on the monitor and smiled. 3 people can't survive. This time it's your turn. I died on a -70-degree cold night. The bone-chilling wind cut my skin like a knife, and I curled up in the wreckage of an abandoned vehicle, watching my exhaled breath quickly turn into ice crystals in the air. 1. My fingers were already turning black from the cold, and my consciousness was beginning to blur, but the coldest part was not my body, but the area of my heart. 3 hours ago, I was still with Caius and Arya in that warm apartment. The 3 of us were college classmates, and after graduation, we lived together, facing this sudden extreme cold apocalypse. At least, I thought we were facing it together. Caius stood at the door, his eyes flickering, not daring to meet my gaze. "Opal, I'm sorry. There's just not enough supplies." Behind him, Arya was wrapped in my down jacket, holding my last hot water bottle. "Caius is right. 3 people can't survive. Arya's voice was sweet to the point of being cloying. You've always been the strongest. You'll definitely find another way, right? I looked at the two of them in disbelief. 3 days ago, I gave the last piece of chocolate to Arya. A week ago, I took a risk to go out and look for supplies, almost losing 2 fingers to the cold. Just to find medicine for Caius's cold, and now, they're going to kick me out. My voice trembled uncontrollably. Caius, you said you would protect me. Caius avoided my gaze. Opal, it's for the best. You should go. When the door closed in front of me, I heard Arya giggling. Caius, now it's just the two of us. That was the last thing I heard. 3 hours later, my heart stopped beating. My consciousness strangely floated in the air, watching my frozen body. And seeing Caius and Arya hugging each other for warmth in the apartment nearby, I'm not willing to accept it. If I could start over again, I'll make you pay with blood. I suddenly opened my eyes. The blinding sunlight made me instinctively raise my hand to block it. Wait, sunlight, warmth. I looked around and found myself sitting in the university library study room, with my computer showing the date, November 1st, 2035. 1 month before the freezing apocalypse arrived. Opal, what are you daydreaming about? A familiar voice said. Arya pushed my shoulder. Caius is asking if you want to go eat hot pot tonight. I turned around and saw Arya's well-made-up face and Caius's gentle smile. My stomach churned. This isn't a dream. I really have been reborn, back to before the tragedy began. I forced a smile, gathered my backpack and left in a hurry. I feel a bit unwell. I'll go back to the dormitory first. Walking on the campus, I pinched my thigh. The pain felt so real that it made me want to cry. Did reincarnation really happen to me? But even more real was the bone-chilling cold and the pain of betrayal in my memory. I took a deep breath and took out my phone to check my bank balance. 3215, 6 yuan, the same as in my memory, at this time in my previous life. I had just paid the rent and was worrying about the living expenses at the end of the month, but now it's different. I remember the winning numbers of the lottery on November 3rd. The first prize was 80 million, because that day was Caius's birthday, and I inexplicably remembered those numbers. This time, I'll let you taste the feeling of being abandoned. 3 days later, I wore a mask and a baseball cap and went to a lottery station in the suburbs to claim my prize. After deducting taxes, 64 million yuan was directly deposited into my account. The bank manager was fawningly serving me, and all I could think of was one thing: stockpiling supplies, building a safe house, surviving, and then taking revenge. I found a 3-story house with a private entrance on the outskirts, and the landlord was a guy who was eager to go abroad. I paid the rent for a year up front, with the condition that I could move in immediately and make modifications. The landlord looked at the truck from the building materials market behind me, looking puzzled. Miss, what are you going to? I smiled and handed him a thick red envelope. My family's elders are afraid of the cold. I want to reinforce the house. Don't worry, I won't damage the main structure. On the day I got the keys, I immediately contacted the construction team. Thickened walls, triple-layer insulated glass, underfloor heating system, solar panels, diesel generator, water purification equipment. My experience surviving in the apocalypse in my previous life made me clear about what I needed. At the same time, I started hoarding supplies. Before I died, it had already snowed up to my waist within a few hours. In such a situation, it was impossible to go out. If there weren't enough supplies at home, even if I wasn't frozen to death, I would starve. In the suburban warehouse supermarket, I pushed 5 shopping carts, emptying the shelves of canned goods, compressed biscuits, instant noodles, various self-heating hot pots, and spicy river snail noodles, under the astonished gaze of the staff. Considering that in such a harsh environment, I couldn't just eat instant food, my body must meet basic nutritional needs, so I also bought 100 cases of sweet shrimp, 50 pounds of chicken legs, 50 pounds of ribs, 100 pounds of beef, 500 pounds of rice, 50 pounds of flour, 200 cases of water, and 100 bags each of seasonings, oil, soy sauce, vinegar, monosodium glutamate, and chicken essence. Worried about power outages later, I bought 100 boxes of candles, 50 high-power power banks, 2 boxes of matches, and 2 boxes of lighters, daily necessities, toilet paper, sanitary napkins, toothpaste, toothbrush, towel, shampoo, skincare products. 2. My first aid kit is filled with antibiotics, painkillers, and frostbite ointment. I specially bought 10 sets of top-grade cold weather suits and 20 hand warmers. I died from lacking these in my previous life. The delivery driver looked at the half of the garage filled with supplies and wiped his sweat. Miss, are you opening a supermarket? I remained expressionless and lied. It's the company's year-end benefits. Thank you. Every night, I carefully record the day's preparations and the plans for the following day in my notebook. On the last page of the notebook, there are photos of Caius and Arya, with a big red cross drawn over them. November 15th, 2 weeks until the extreme cold arrives. My safe house is basically completed. The walls were thickened by 30 centimeters and filled with the best insulation materials. All the windows were replaced with bulletproof triple-glazed vacuum glass. The roof is covered with solar panels, and the basement is equipped with a diesel generator sufficient to support 3 months. The attic was converted into a greenhouse, where fast-growing vegetables are cultivated. I stood in the living room, looking at the thermometer showing 22 degrees Celsius. And I couldn't help but shiver as I remembered the minus 70 degrees Celsius of my previous life's final moment. My phone suddenly rang. It was Caius. I stared at the name flashing on the screen, and a sarcastic smile curled my lips. My voice came out as I myself wanted to vomit. Hello, Caius, Opal, where have you been these days? Arya and I have been worried about you. Caius's voice was as gentle as ever. It was this false image that deceived me in my previous life. I made up a random excuse. I was taking care of my sick aunt, and I forgot to tell you. By the way, I'll treat you to dinner this weekend. There's something I want to talk to you about. After hanging up, I went to the basement, where there was a specially prepared room, the monitoring room. 6 screens displayed real-time footage from different angles outside the house. The last apartment we rented didn't have cameras, which is why the robbers were able to enter so easily. This time, I will make sure there are no mistakes. On the weekend, I specifically chose a high-end restaurant. Caius and Arya arrived one after another, and when they saw the private room I had reserved, both of them showed the same surprise in their eyes. Arya looked at the luxurious decoration of the private room and said with a hint of envy, Opal, have you become rich? I smiled and handed her the menu, saying, my aunt gave me some money. Order what you like. During the meal, I carefully observed their interactions. Caius occasionally served food to Arya, and Arya would accidentally touch Caius's hand. These details I didn't notice at all in the previous life. I must have been blind. Arya and I were college classmates. Her family was not well off, and she only had a fixed monthly allowance of 200 yuan. I often saw her eating cold steamed buns in the dormitory, and she wore old clothes. I felt very sorry for her and tried my best to help her, even lending her half of my allowance. Even when I saw her entering hotels with different men, I never looked down on her, only felt sorry for her. 3. I considered her my best friend, and I told her my innermost thoughts and secrets. I told her that the person I liked was Caius. After we started dating, I would also take her shopping with me, afraid that she would feel neglected by my relationship. But I treated her sincerely, and she took my boyfriend away from me, even conspiring to take my life. At this moment, they are sitting in front of me, chatting and laughing, treating me as if I were invisible. I casually mentioned, by the way, do you know that it's going to get colder next week? Caius said carelessly, it's just winter, normal. I heard a friend in the meteorology department say that it might be really cold. I lowered my voice and said, should you prepare some supplies? Arya laughed. Opal, when did you become so timid? Just turn on the air conditioner when it's cold. I lowered my head and took a sip of soup, hiding the coldness in my eyes. I was also so naive back then, until the power and water were cut off, and the air conditioner became a piece of junk. I realized the severity of the problem. By the way, you said there was something to tell us, Caius asked. I put down my spoon and smiled shyly. Actually, I won a small prize. I bought an apartment in the suburbs. I want to invite you to come over this weekend to warm up the house. Both of their eyes lit up at the same time. Opal, you're amazing. Arya excitedly grabbed my hand. How much did you win? I said casually, downplaying the amount. Just a few 10,000. In my previous life, I trusted them too much and told them everything, only to end up with nothing left. Caius's expression was a bit complicated. Why suddenly decided to buy a house? It's an investment, I said with a smile, changing the subject. I'll send you the location at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. Watching the two of them leave, my smile gradually disappeared. The fish has taken the bait. It's time to reel it in. On Saturday morning, I checked the safe house's facilities for the last time. The fire in the fireplace was flickering, and the indoor temperature was maintained at 25 degrees Celsius. The shelves in the basement storage room were neatly arranged with enough food and daily supplies for one person for 5 years. The weapon cabinet contained a stun baton, pepper spray, and a shotgun. I bought it from the black market at a high price. Although it was illegal, the law had already become meaningless in the apocalypse. The doorbell rang on time at 10 o'clock. Through the surveillance camera, I saw Caius and Arya standing outside the door. And Caius was holding a bottle of red wine in his hand. As soon as Arya entered, she complained, "Opal, this place is too remote. It cost me over $200 to take a taxi. Be quiet, the air is fresh." I took the wine from Caius. "Thank you, it's just right for hot pot." I showed them around the house, deliberately skipping over the reinforced walls and various survival equipment, only showing the ordinary living space. The two of them clearly weren't interested in my new house until they entered the kitchen. "Why is this fridge so big?" Caius opened the double-door fridge, which was filled with fresh ingredients. I smiled and took out the hot pot base. "I like cooking, how about a spicy hot pot today?" During the meal, I intentionally made them drink alcohol. Caius didn't have a good alcohol tolerance, and after 3 glasses he started talking a lot. Arya's face was flushed, and her eyes were dazed. I pretended to be envious and said, "Caius, you and Arya have such a good relationship. I'm jealous." Caius's hand trembled, and his chopsticks fell on the table. "Opal, you're saying this?" "Oh no, Opal, don't misunderstand," Arya quickly explained, instinctively moving closer to Caius. I laughed inwardly, but put on an expression of sudden understanding. "Oh, I see, you two have been together all along, right? Why did you keep it a secret from me?" Caius's expression looked like he had been struck by lightning. "Opal, let me explain." "No need to explain." I laughed and clapped my hands. "I already figured it out. Actually, I should tell you, I have a boyfriend, arranged by my family. Part of the money for this house comes from him." Their expressions shifted from panic to surprise, then to a subtle relief. I could almost read their thoughts. Great, no more pretending. And Opal had actually hooked up with a rich guy. "Opal, you're so unfair. Keeping such a big secret from us." Arya pouted, then poured herself another glass of wine. Midway through the hot pot meal, a sudden strong wind blew outside, and the sky quickly darkened. I walked to the window, watching the rapidly gathering clouds, my heart racing. 3 days earlier than before, the extreme cold apocalypse was about to begin. The weather suddenly. Caius didn't finish his sentence, as the sound of hail pounding on the roof was heard outside. Sudden darkness. I quickly went to the control panel and turned on the backup power and heating system. The lights in the whole house flickered for a moment and then returned to normal. Arya looked at me in surprise. "Opal, it seems my meteorology friend was right," I said seriously. "They said this might be a global extreme cold snap that will last for a long time." Caius said dismissively, "That's an exaggeration. It'll be cold for a few days at most." I didn't argue, but I turned on the TV. All channels were broadcasting emergency news. A polar cold front was moving south, and the national temperature would drop to the lowest in history. The government advised people to stock up on supplies and try to minimize going out. Arya's face changed. "We need to go back to the city quickly." I pointed out the window. "I'm afraid it's too late. In just a dozen minutes, the outside world had already been covered in white. The snow depth was increasing visibly, and the roads were completely covered. Even more frightening was the temperature. The thermometer hanging from the eaves showed that the outside temperature had dropped to 20 degrees below zero, and it was still continuing to fall. Caius tried to call a taxi with his phone, but the signal had become extremely unstable. "Damn, I can't get through," I said gently. "You two should stay here tonight. The guest rooms are all ready." The two of them looked at each other and reluctantly nodded in agreement. I led them to the guest rooms on the 2nd floor, intentionally arranging only one. I innocently blinked my eyes. "This is the only room with the best heating. After all, you two are a couple, so it's okay, right?" Arya's face turned red, and Caius awkwardly coughed twice. 5. I kindly closed the door, a sly smile tugging at my lips. Back in the monitoring room, I brought up the hidden camera footage of the guest room. After my death, they had enjoyed themselves freely. Now I will watch them step-by-step destruction with my own eyes. In the footage, Caius and Arya indeed quickly embraced each other. The air conditioner was on heating, but Arya still shivered with chills. her voice trembling with tears. Caius, what should we do, if it really gets as bad as the news said? Caius comforted her with words, don't be afraid, I'm here. While his hands unsteadily slipped under Arya's clothes, Opal has plenty of supplies here, we can stay for now, and wait until the weather improves. I turned off the monitor, and my stomach churned, the same conversation, the same behavior, except this time it happened earlier, in the previous life. They had gotten together a week after the extreme cold arrived. It seems my new relationship has made them completely drop their disguise. It was late at night, and the wind outside howled like a ghost's wail. The thermometer showed the temperature had dropped to 50 degrees below zero, approaching the extreme cold that had killed me in the previous life. I pulled the down comforter tightly around me, yet I felt an unprecedented sense of warmth and safety. The next morning, I was startled awake by a frantic knocking on the door. Caius's voice was filled with panic. Opal, something big has happened. I slowly got up and opened the door, and saw him with a pale face holding his phone. All communications have been cut off. The TV has no signal, I calmly said. It seems the situation is more serious than we thought. Let's go downstairs for breakfast, and we can talk while we eat. At the table, Arya kept checking her phone, which had no response, and tears welled up in her eyes. How could this happen? I can't reach my parents. I don't know if they're okay back home. I handed her a cup of warm milk and said, stay calm, right now, panicking won't help. We need to figure out how to survive. Caius suddenly grabbed my hand. Opal, you said yesterday that you knew about this cold wave. Did you know something? I looked at the fear and hope in his eyes, and gently pulled my hand back. My friend in the meteorology department studies extreme climates. He predicted this cold wave might last for several months, or even longer. Several months, Arya screamed. What are we going to do? Will we have enough food? I have a habit of stockpiling supplies, I said vaguely. I should be able to make do for a while. For the next 3 days, the outdoor temperature continued to drop, finally stabilizing around -70 degrees. Just like in my previous life, the whole world seemed to have been paused, with power, internet, and water all cut off. But my safe house continued to operate using solar power and a diesel generator. Caius and Arya gradually became anxious from their initial panic. On the 4th morning, I found them rummaging through the kitchen cabinets. I stood at the door and asked, what are you looking for? They were startled, and Caius forced a smile. We wanted to help you make breakfast, but couldn't find any ingredients. The ingredients are all in the basement. I stared at their flustered expressions. It's locked there, and the low temperature is suitable for storing food. I bring the daily portion up myself, Arya exploded. Opal, what do you mean by this? Are you treating us like outsiders? The supplies are limited, and we must distribute them properly, I said coldly. If you're not satisfied, you can leave. Caius immediately softened, taking a deep breath and speaking more calmly. Opal, Arya didn't mean that. We're just worried. If the cold snap lasts for too long, then we'll have to follow my arrangements. I turned and walked towards the stairs. We'll have canned food and compressed biscuits today. Come with me to get them. The basement's iron door used an electronic keypad lock, and I intentionally kept my back to them while entering the password to ensure they couldn't see it. The indoor air was bitterly cold, and the neatly arranged supplies on the shelves made the two of them gasp in surprise. Arya hadn't expected that so much had been prepared. So much. It's only enough for one person for 5 years. I deliberately emphasized, one person. Now with 2 more mouths to feed, it'll only last 2 years. Caius's expression turned fierce. I could tell he was calculating. 2 years, if only one person remained, they could survive longer. That night, the two of them clearly lost their usual affectionate atmosphere, and they had a heated argument in the guest room. What are we going to do? It's -70 degrees outside now. Are we really going to stay here with that woman for the rest of our lives? Caius lost his patience and threw his phone down. What other choice do we have? She's clearly keeping us in check. So many supplies, but she only gives us a little bit each day, like feeding dogs. Arya, shivering and wrapping the blanket around herself, pointed at Caius and scolded. Are you even a man? She tells you to do something, you do it. Are you a pig? You always say you like her, but you don't even give her a bite to eat. Caius became furious and slapped Arya. Do you dare to test me? I'll kill you right now. Arya became much quieter after getting slapped. A while later, Caius suddenly frowned and said, if it were just the two of us, the supplies would last longer. I turned off the surveillance camera. My heart pounding. History is repeating itself, except this time the roles are reversed. In the past, they abandoned me to survive, now they are killing each other. I am very much looking forward to their fate. Turn off the surveillance camera, check the clock. It was only 10 o'clock. I had the same dinner as them, and now my stomach is already growling. On such a cold day, a bowl of warm dumplings is just right. Take out an 8-inch bowl, add some seaweed, some coriander, a bit of lard, a spoon of soy sauce, a spoon of vinegar, a little salt, and some dumpling broth. Stir it up, and then put the main character's 3 flavored dumplings in. A fragrant and steaming bowl of dumplings is done. After eating the dumplings, I curled up in the warm bed and watched some TV before going to sleep. The next day, I woke up at 11 o'clock. With nothing to do, I opened my phone's monitor and found Caius and Arya talking in the room. These two are up to no good. None of them are trustworthy. Outside, heavy snow was almost covering the windows, and it still showed no sign of stopping, with big chunks of snow falling from the sky. 3 days. They had changed from initial panic to current restlessness, like wild animals trapped in a cage. At breakfast, Arya had one hand over her stomach and the other arm around my arm, cooing, "Opal, can you give me a little more food these 2 days? My stomach isn't feeling well." I took a slow bite of the cracker. Supplies are limited, each person has a daily quota. If you're not feeling well, I can find you some medicine. Caius suddenly slammed his spoon on the table. "Opal, what do you mean? Are you treating us like prisoners?" I looked at him, this man who I had loved so desperately in my past life. Now his eyes were full of anger and a bit of fear. What a beautiful combination. "Caius, what are you talking about?" I showed a hurt expression. "I'm just trying to make sure we can survive longer. If you're not satisfied, the door is right there." Caius's demeanor immediately weakened. He knew that outside was a deathly world of -70 degrees, and this was his only shelter. I was just worried about Arya. His confidence weakened, but he still felt he had to save face, shouting, "She's always been in poor health. Besides, she's your best friend. Isn't your concern hers? I didn't expect you to be so petty and calculating." I almost rolled my eyes. "Really, he has no shame at all. When I was driven out before, I didn't see you care this much." I bit back my physical discomfort and forced a kind smile. "I understand. How about I cook some hot soup for lunch? And we all have it together." Seeing the hope flicker in their eyes, I secretly noted, hunger is a great weapon. After lunch, I intentionally asked Caius to help me clean the dishes. In the kitchen, I accidentally touched his hand. "Sorry." I pretended to be flustered and pulled my hand back, my face slightly red. Caius was stunned, his eyes flashing with a complex expression. I knew what he was thinking. Opal still has feelings for me, then maybe, Opal, He took a step forward to take my hand. "Caius," Arya's voice came from the door, sharp like a fingernail scratching glass. "Can you help me find my scarf?" Caius left in a hurry, and I bent down to continue washing the dishes, a sly smile on my lips. The real fun is about to start. Evening, I went to the basement to get some peanuts, sunflower seeds, and a fruit tray. Sitting by the warm fireplace, everything was ready. I opened the surveillance camera, and sure enough, it showed that the two of them had a heated argument. Arya was sitting on the floor, crying and accusing Caius. "What were you doing in the kitchen just now?" Caius was lying down playing games, not even lifting his head. "I was just helping to wash the dishes. Can't you stop being so suspicious?" Upon hearing this, Arya exploded, rushing over to grab Caius's hair and saying, "I saw it. She touched your hand. Tell me, when did you get back together with that woman? Are you still in love with her?" Caius remained silent, and this silence was more damaging than any answer. Arya looked at Caius in disbelief, tears dropping one after another. "Okay, Caius, now that you're living off her, are you trying to dump me?" Seeing this, Caius could only let out a helpless sigh. "Keep your voice down. We still need her right now, can't you understand?" Seeing them fight like that, I turned off the surveillance and went to sleep contentedly. The seed of division had already been planted, waiting for it to take root and grow. The next morning, I found Arya with red, puffy eyes, obviously having cried all night, while Caius kept avoiding her gaze. "The weather seems not so cold today," I said on purpose. "The weather forecast says the cold wave might end within a week." The expressions of both immediately changed. Arya grabbed my hand excitedly. "Really, we can go home, it's just possible," I added, but if it's really like that, we need to save our supplies and make it to the end. Caius's eyes flickered. Opal, if the cold snap ends, what are you going to do? I pretended to think. I might go abroad to find my boyfriend. This house, it will probably be sold. I saw Caius and Arya exchange a glance, greedy eyes, in the past life. They abandoned me for survival, and now, for the property, they might do it again. For the next few days, I continued my little game. I gave Caius a little more food, and was a bit harsh with Arya. I deliberately dressed lightly in front of Caius, but gave Arya the thickest blanket. I recalled the good times of university with Caius in front of Arya. On the 5th day morning, Arya finally exploded. She rushed into the kitchen, her face twisted. Opal, you did it on purpose, didn't you? You seduced Caius, you're stealing my food. I looked innocent. Arya, what are you talking about? Are you misunderstanding something? Arya screamed. Stop pretending, you're just jealous that I'm with Caius. You bitch, enough. Caius rushed in and grabbed her. Are you crazy? This is our only shelter. Arya pushed him away. You're protecting her. I knew it. The two of you have been together all along behind my back. She suddenly grabbed a fruit knife from the table and pointed it at me. Caius hurriedly stepped in front of me. How ironic. Last time he pushed me to my death, and now he protects me. Arya, put the knife down. Arya completely broke down, crying and shouting. Do you all want me to die? Fine, I'm leaving. She turned and ran toward the door. Caius hesitated for a second, and surprisingly did not go after her. He said in a low voice, it's so cold outside, let her go out to cool down. She'll be back soon. I walked to the window and watched Arya's frail figure run into the snowstorm. At -60 degrees, the cold was extreme. The snow was almost up to her chest. Without a thermal suit, she wouldn't last 10 minutes. Caius was sitting there, stunned. Are you not going to chase her? He avoided my gaze, his eyes flickering, muttering, she'll come back. She'll come back. No, she won't. I look at the thermometer, feeling completely calm. The first revenge target is completed. Caius is restless in the living room, checking the door every 5 minutes. An hour later, he finally realizes that Arya will not return. Opal, should we? His voice trembled. Go look for her. I sneered, like how you guys kicked me out before. Caius's face turned pale instantly. What are you talking about? I slowly stood up and took a notebook from the drawer, opening to the last page, which recorded the time, place, and temperature of my previous death, December 3rd, 2035, 70 degrees below zero, kicked out of the apartment by Caius and Arya, died frozen on the street. Caius stepped back as if he had seen a ghost. This is impossible. I'm reborn. Caius, I said calmly, I died once and came back to life, just to see how you all die. His knees gave way, and he fell to the ground. Opal, I was wrong. I was possessed by a demon at that time. It's all her. That bitch lured me in. I've always loved you. I walked to the control panel and turned off the heating in the guest room. No, you were very clear. You knew what -70 degrees meant, yet you pushed me out. Please. He crawled over to hug my leg, but I dodged him. I smiled at him. Do you know why I've kept you this long? Because I want you to taste the fear Arya felt before she died. Now, it's your turn. I pressed the button to unlock the main door, and a cold wind rushed into the room immediately. No. Opal, for the 3 years of our relationship, I sneered. Do you even deserve to mention those 2 words? Get out. Caius suddenly jumped up and rushed toward the knife rack in the kitchen, but I was faster, pulling out the hunting gun I had bought on the black market from under the sofa cushion. I pointed the gun at him. Guess why I bought this? Just for this moment. Caius's face turned deathly pale, and he stepped back toward the door. You'll get your comeuppance. He shouted one last time. I clicked the safety on. No, this is your comeuppance. As the door closed, the world returned to silence. I walked to the monitor, watching Caius stagger into the snowstorm, disappearing into the snow after taking a few steps. 2 hours later, I found 2 bodies frozen like ice sculptures in 2 different directions. Arya was curled up under a tree, her face still showing anger and fear. Caius was lying 500 meters away from the safe house. His fingers stretched forward as if trying to crawl back. I turned off the monitor and poured myself a cup of hot chocolate. The taste of revenge is even sweeter than imagined. 3 days later, the thermometer began to slowly rise. -60 degrees, -55 degrees, -50 degrees. 1 week later, the outdoor temperature returned to -20 degrees, and it was possible to go out briefly. I put on my thermal suit and stepped out of the safe house for the first time. The sunlight reflected off the snow, creating a blinding glare. Back inside, I burned the notebook that recorded my revenge. The ashes danced in the fireplace, like my past resentments. Finally dissipating, the TV suddenly got a signal, and the news anchor excitedly announced that the extreme cold weather had ended. And the government was organizing a rescue. I watched the thermometer's steadily rising numbers, knowing that a new life was about to begin. This time, I will no longer trust a wrong love, and I will not make the same mistake again. Rebirth has given me not only the chance for revenge, but also the right to choose my life again. The ice outside begins to melt, and my heart's winter has finally passed. Story 2. When the apocalypse broke out, I was alone at the parcel transfer station. A snap, a zombie shattered the glass and appeared behind me. Until the end, I didn't even know how I died. 1. I was just a humble courier, working in the parcel transfer station. However, I had lived through an apocalypse, a virus rampant, zombies descending, the world desolate. When I opened my eyes again, I was still in that small parcel transfer station. I had been reborn, 10 hours before the apocalypse began. 2. I hurriedly walked around the entire transfer station. No one. The station was eerily quiet, with only the sound of machinery in operation. Then I remembered, before the apocalypse, Jonathan and the others had gone out to enjoy themselves. I wasn't interested in that. I stayed to work overtime and earn money. I immediately picked up my phone and tried calling Jonathan and the others. The call wouldn't go through, the dial tone echoing in my mind. I glanced at the second hand ticking away relentlessly. There was no time left. I dialed dozens more times. Finally, it connected. Jonathan, listen, get the guys and stock up on food at home. Don't ask why. Just pretend a world war is about to break out. Jonathan was clearly confused. I could sense his disbelief over the phone. What? Are you watching too many war movies? If you're tired from work, come join us for a drink. The girls here are gorgeous. Jonathan, stop joking and listen to me. Don't you trust me? Stop fooling around and head home. I yelled into the phone. I knew if I told them I had been reborn, they'd think I was joking. The bar was far from the courier station. Their homes were indeed the safest place. Jonathan, scared by my insistence, stammered, all right, I'm going home. You, don't panic. If work's too overwhelming, take a break. With that, Jonathan hung up. Now, I could only hope that Jonathan would heed my advice and take everyone back home. 3. I sighed and looked around. The factory's equipment had not been maintained for a long time and showed clear signs of rust. At a glance, this place wasn't well suited to fend off zombie attacks. Fortunately, since I was reborn in a parcel transfer station, there were plenty of supplies. I found the spare key hidden behind a flower pot and opened the warehouse. Inside were numerous parcels, large and small, neatly arranged. These were yet to be dispatched, probably worth millions. I approached the parcels. Some had labels. Others didn't. I checked each labeled parcel. A large portion of these parcels contained household products. The larger items were sofas, bed frames, and the like. Smaller items included food, like bread and chips, mostly dry goods. Surprisingly, there were also anti-theft windows and doors. Facing zombies with attacking capabilities was a priority in the apocalypse, and it was essential to dismantle these fixtures now to fortify our defenses. Sofas and such were of little use now. They were meant for leisure at home, but there was no room for relaxation now. They would be used to block the doors. Since I wasn't sure if we'd have electricity during the apocalypse, I remembered seeing some power banks. There were many sockets in the main hall, so I could start by charging the power banks there. Food needs to be carefully rationed and eaten incrementally. First, I categorized the food that had labels, marked them with a pen, and noted the dates. This amount of food should last for a month or two. However, it wasn't enough to just sit back. I needed a plan. After a while, I dismantled all the furniture and fixtures. I grabbed a piece of bread to fill my stomach and quickly started fortifying the surrounding area of the transfer station with doors and glass. Fortunately, I had some experience as a repair worker before taking on this task. I still remembered how to install doors and windows. Glancing at my phone, the 10 hours I originally had were now reduced to 8. Thinking and unpacking had consumed too much time. I didn't dwell on it any further. I just grabbed the doors and windows and started fitting them crudely and simply. There wasn't much time left. Sweat dripped from my forehead as my eyes darted around quickly. I needed to keep an eye on the outside to prevent an apocalypse from starting prematurely, while also paying attention to every gap I was sealing. The ticking of the second hand constantly echoed in my ears. It took me 6 hours. Now, only 2 hours remained. From my observations, the glass was highly soundproof. As long as I didn't turn on any lights outside, zombies wouldn't notice this place. The doors were also very sturdy, from the material. If zombies tried to force their way in, it would take them quite an effort. After everything was done, I was still uneasy, seeing that there was a little time left. I blocked the door with some large pieces of dismantled furniture. I was drenched in sweat, my clothes soaked through. I took off my shirt and draped it over my shoulders, then headed towards the warehouse. A harsh, dry roar made me stop unpacking. The clock struck 5 in the morning, neither too early nor too late. The apocalypse had come again, for I calmed myself down. After all, I had been through this once before. It was just a small ordeal, yet my hands couldn't stop shaking. Small ordeal. My foot, the more panicked I felt, the faster I unpacked, wishing I could just find a tank missile or nuclear weapon. Okay, that was wishful thinking. Something hard hit my leg with a clang, a loud noise, and the pain made me stand up. Damn, what was that? It even slid down on its own. Wait, a solid baton. That's useful. If zombies blocked the door, I could just swing it at them. What excited me most was the number of batons. There were 70 in total. I suspected someone had bought these in bulk for self-defense classes. After seeing this, I immediately left the packages aside and began unpacking where the batons had fallen, hoping the self-defense class had ordered other items too: wolf spray, electric batons, iron fans. Sadly, my luck might have run out. After finding a few, I didn't come across any more weapons. So I returned to my original spot and continued unpacking. As I kept going, I realized the vast unpredictability of online shopping. I unboxed a live fish, and because I was in such a hurry, I just ripped open the package and dumped it on the ground. Water splashed all over me, even more uncomfortable than sweating. Why would anyone ship a live fish? Was the seller not thorough? Unscrupulous seller. Wait, a live fish. I could raise fish. That's better than running out of food. I temporarily placed the fish back into a small tank. I was close to the ground when I poured it, so the tank didn't shatter. Rubbing my hands, I felt much more excited than at the start. Who knows, maybe I could even find a dinosaur egg. No dinosaur eggs yet, but I did find 3 boxes of eggs, all different sizes and colors, probably not from the same species. The only thing I could be sure of was the chicken eggs. One box was mostly chicken eggs. Eggs are great. But when I lifted this box to move it to the freezer, it turned out the eggs were so fragile that a few broke. Oh well, broken eggs are one thing, but moving, have the eggs become spirited? It wasn't until a little yellow head popped out that I realized it was a newborn chick. Ah, that was an accident. Got scared by a zombie. It seems these were fertilized eggs, so they can't be stored in the freezer. Oh yes, the freezer, with the experience from the last apocalypse. I fully recognized the importance of planning for survival. I'm not even sure if the freezer still works. When I entered the freezer, a gust of cold air hit me. Thankfully the apocalypse hadn't disrupted the electricity. I hurriedly moved some perishable food items into the freezer: 100 cans of fruit and meat preserves, 150 black pepper sausages, 88 packets of frozen chicken tenders and crispy chicken popcorn, 90 steaks, 80 pounds of frozen shrimp, 70 bags of instant dumplings, 100 per bag, 105 bags of fruit rice balls, 60 per bag, 95 packs of frozen wontons, 35 per pack, 130 bags of soup dumplings, 18 per bag, 50 pounds of fish, 65 pounds of beef, 80 pounds of pork. The freezer is quite large. After moving all those items inside, I was too tired to move, especially those dozens of pounds of meat. It felt like I was transporting entire cows and pigs. Half the space was still empty. I planned to restore my energy in the evening and continue moving items, otherwise the spoiled food might emit a bad smell and could even attract zombies. I sat down to rest for a while and didn't rush back to the storage. Instead, I checked the other dorm rooms. It wasn't long since the apocalypse erupted. These dorm rooms were still clean and hadn't accumulated much dust. However, these dorm rooms were without exception very simple and small. I considered whether to knock down a wall and connect 2 rooms together. I knew it was a complex task, and walls aren't easily demolished. I pulled up measurements on my phone and measured the wall space. Then I went to the warehouse for tools, but halfway through, the sound of zombies made me give up. The noise from the cutting machine was too loud. Continuing would only attract more zombies. I looked out the window, waiting for the zombies to leave before I dared to proceed. Since it was already half demolished, I decided to use it as a door. I moved the dry food and snacks to the left dorm room and did a rough inventory. 180 bags of chips, 40g each, 200 packs boxes of instant noodles, 113g each. 140 bottles of yogurt, a total of 50 boxes of mineral water. I worried it was too much to fit, so I started with 15 boxes, each containing 12 bottles, 160 bags of hand-torn bread, 85 boxes of compressed biscuits, 12 packs per box, 42g per pack, 10 boxes of 8 treasure porridge, 12 cans per box, 360g per can, 12 boxes of instant Kanto boil, 8 buckets per box, 15 boxes of self-heating meals and hot pots, 6 packs per box, 50 boxes of Snickers, 80 bars per box, 20g per bar, 15 boxes of crispy noodles. 48 packs per box. The left dorm room was nearly full, and these supplies should last me for several months. My phone chimed, and when I checked it, I saw that the battery was already in the red zone. Time also seemed to slip away incredibly fast. It was already 9 p.m. before I knew it. In my whole life, I've never done such exhausting work. 6. It's the 10th day since the apocalypse began, and my fertilized eggs are hatching one after another, revealing several fluffy yellow creatures peeking out. To prevent these chirping reserves of food from attracting zombies, I made a breeding farm for them in the factory using iron sheets and cardboard. The fish are also doing well, growing quickly and looking plump and juicy. I hope they continue to thrive and produce more eggs. The zombies really can't stay put. Just hearing the faintest chicken crows, they come banging on the door, making a clang 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 noise that disturbs my sleep at night. After getting up and washing up, I start sorting through the parcels to open for today. I spotted several burlap sacks stacked together, shipped from Zayaquihua Farm Trade. I squeezed it. It felt rough and grainy. Tearing open the tape, I found 7 or 8 bags of seeds inside, along with a small packet of fertilizer and a 5 yuan cashback card for a good review. Each packaging bag listed the type of seeds, each weighing 1 pound. Excitedly, I opened the other burlap sacks and spread the bags of seeds on the floor, which included 10 packs of barley seeds, 10 packs of millet seeds, 30 packs of corn seeds, 5 packs of tomato seeds, 5 packs of bok choy seeds, 5 packs of celery seeds, 5 packs of chili seeds, 5 packs of cucumber seeds. There were plenty of varieties, so I didn't have to worry about a vitamin shortage. Although there were vitamin pills in the parcels, they weren't as refreshing as vegetables. Corn seeds were the most abundant, and although there was no place to plant them, using them to feed the chickens solved the problem of insufficient chicken feed. I cleared the space used for piling up cardboard boxes in the backyard. There were no farming machines in the transfer station, but there was a hoe in the parcels. I took the hoe and spent the whole afternoon tilling the land. In the evening, I sowed the seeds I recognized, watered, and fertilized them. As a child, I spent 2 days planting potatoes with my grandfather, so planting potatoes wasn't an issue. I assumed other vegetables would be roughly the same. By the time everything was done, it was nearly midnight. I boiled some water, made do with a bowl of instant noodles, and went to bed. Today was almost over, exhausted to the core. 7. Hey, is anyone there? Today is the 25th day since the apocalypse started, and I saw the first living person since it began, Jonathan, in the afternoon. Feeling bored, I took out a telescope I had just unpacked from a parcel and looked around, only to spot someone standing on a balcony. The transfer station was well located, right next to a residential area and very close, practically just separated by a wall. Many parcels were purchases made by people in this area, but I never expected that Jonathan lived right here, and in the closest building on the 6th floor. Before the apocalypse, Jonathan was my best buddy, a sincere and honest guy who never complained about hard or tiring work. After the apocalypse broke, I tried calling around, but couldn't get through to anyone, including Jonathan. Later, when the internet cables were cut by zombies and the signal was lost, I gave up on trying to contact the outside world. Jonathan also saw me, and after nervously checking his surroundings to ensure there were no zombies, he nodded at me, wanting to speak but not daring to. Helplessly, I had to retreat back up the ladder, dryly watching him. Day 29 of the apocalypse. Just a few days had passed, and the chicks that were not even half the size of my fist had doubled in size. They chirped all day long, their calls growing louder and louder. This situation also attracted more zombies to gather around the transfer station. A couple of zombies wouldn't have been too bad, but their increasing numbers had me worried. With no other choice, I had to move the chicks to an empty dormitory. I then sealed all the doors and windows with tape to prevent any sound from escaping. This method worked quite well. The absence of chirping sounds caused the zombies to disperse. Slowly, several large eggs hatched into ducklings. I had heard that ducks take longer to hatch than chickens, but they were certainly not any quieter. Every day was filled with the sounds of chickens and ducks, like a wild symphony of nature. I'm sorry, but I couldn't appreciate it. I had no choice but to set aside another dormitory for the ducks, sealing it up with tape for them. These past few days, I've repeatedly seen Jonathan looking in my direction from his windowsill, holding onto a sliver of hope. I picked up the phone again to call Jonathan, but the screen just showed no signal. At this point, I decided not to pin my hopes on getting small items delivered anymore. Instead, I grabbed a ladder and started to dismantle some oddly shaped packages. To my surprise, I found a treasure, a drone. 9. The drone was from DJI, known for its good quality. I checked its capacity, and it could carry up to 20 kilograms. This was a delightful discovery as it gave me a means to observe and communicate with the outside world. That night, since zombies typically don't like moving around in the deep, chilly night, I took the opportunity. I wrote a message on a piece of paper and sent it to Jonathan via the drone. Jonathan, you're still alive. After waiting a few minutes, I saw Jonathan poke his head out again, holding the drone high up. I quickly performed a series of operations to bring the drone back to me. Bro, you're still alive too. I'm really happy and grateful. He had written back, the letters shaky from excitement. I picked up the pen again, ready to write a few words to inquire about his situation. But I hesitated and pulled back. In these apocalyptic times, paper and ink were scarce, and the continuously moving drone might be discovered. After some thought, I remembered something I had unpacked from the deliveries a few days ago. I ran to the warehouse and started rummaging through the strange items I had found in the packages. Found them. In my hands were two plastic watches, very flashy in appearance and obviously meant for children, fake versions of the smartwatch. Lacking many features of the originals, still, they could serve as short-range walkie-talkies. I attached one of the watches to the drone and wrote down instructions for its use on a piece of paper. The drone took its time, but Jonathan clearly understood my intent, and when the drone returned, he had taken the watch. 10. That night, once I was sure it was quiet around, I tried to contact Jonathan. The beeping sound lingered in my ear, and I was anxious that something might go wrong again and I wouldn't be able to reach Jonathan. But after a while, the connection went through. I couldn't wait. Jonathan, when did you buy a house here? I had no idea. This isn't my house, Jonathan replied, sounding both excited and emotional. It was bought by my parents when I was young, meant for when I got married. I never did marry, and I bought another house later. So this one went to my parents. But really, thank you, bro. That night, when you suddenly asked me to come home, I could sense the urgency in your voice and dashed to the transfer station, fearing you might be despairing. As I was nearing, I suddenly heard an awful screeching sound, and when I turned around, I saw those monsters. I was nearly scared out of my wits and remembered there was a house nearby, so I hurried home. Why didn't you call me? I asked. Jonathan sighed lightly. I lost my phone while running away. The old folks at home don't use smartphones, just feature phones, and they don't have your contact saved. Thankfully, the elders are frugal, usually eat little, and like to stock up on food, which is how I've managed to hold out until now. Jonathan continued, by the way, how did you know to stock up on food? I felt a bit embarrassed, worried that if I told him about being reborn, he might not believe me and might think I had gone mad because of the apocalypse. But then, considering we were brothers in adversity, I decided not to hide the truth and spilled everything. To my surprise, Jonathan not only believed me quickly but was also incredibly excited. Ah, I knew it, brother, you were such a good person in your past life. You must have saved the galaxy to earn this precious chance to be reborn. Aren't you afraid I might be deceiving you? I asked, puzzled. You're a very honest person. Zombies have appeared, so why wouldn't I believe in rebirth? Speaking of which, do you have a lot of supplies on your side? Yes, there's a lot left in the warehouse. Brother, do you have any extra food? Just a little would do. My parents are really starving. Jonathan's voice was weak, clearly having missed several meals, which made my heart ache. I knew what he wanted to say, and why he hesitated. His family probably really had no food left. Come on, no need to be formal with me. Didn't I mooch off you for a few days when I had no money? I'll check the warehouse and see if there's anything I can send over. I readily agreed, but once I got to the warehouse, it dawned on me, why not use a drone? I smacked my head for not thinking of it sooner. With a 20 kilograms carrying capacity, it could transport quite a bit. I picked up the walkie-talkie and swiftly set it up. Jonathan, come to your window. I'm sending over some food. All right, brother, I'll be right there. The transport went smoothly. Besides food, I also sent him some fish, eggs and seeds. Jonathan has always enjoyed gardening, and there were plenty of plant pots at his place. Although the fish, eggs and seeds weren't much, they would be enough for his family to become self-sufficient. Seeing the supplies, Jonathan was so moved he almost cried, and the tall man bowed deeply to me through the window. His voice of thanks came over the walkie-talkie, making me feel uncomfortable all over. Jonathan is an honest man. Maybe if I had been more insistent about him stocking up food earlier, his family would have been more comfortable. I picked up a piece of bread, but it tasted bland. Day 50 of the apocalypse, the chickens and ducks have grown fatter and are noisier than ever. Even though I've used tape to muffle the noise, the grown birds' calls have become quite penetrating, and I've noticed zombies approaching more frequently. This is not good, although I've reinforced this place considerably. It's large, and it's hard to guarantee there are no vulnerabilities. I selected a few of the larger, meatier chickens. The chickens and ducks that lay eggs frequently were kept for breeding, while the others were scalded to remove their feathers and then sent to the freezer. By the time I finished cleaning, the warehouse had become much quieter. Every day, I regularly patrolled the exterior using a drone. Occasionally, I would spot a living person, but they would be swarmed by zombies in the next second, resulting in a gruesome scene. I can't even imagine what the outside world has turned into. Jonathan managed to secure supplies, so he and his parents didn't lack food or drink, and sometimes we would even share a drink across the windowsill. One evening, while lying in bed reading a newly unpacked book, I suddenly heard a clinking and clanking sound. The last time I heard such a noise was before the apocalypse. When I was installing security measures, zombies couldn't make such a noise, so there was only one other possibility. Could it be a living person? My mind tensed up instantly, and my breathing became rapid. It had been too long since I had seen anyone alive apart from Jonathan's family. If these were people fleeing for their lives, they wouldn't be so quiet. That left only one possibility. They were up to no good, likely targeting my well-stocked station. It seems the cries of the chickens and ducks didn't attract zombies, but something else instead. I picked up the electric baton from beside my bed, planning to confront whoever was approaching. Regardless of their intentions, the clinking noise continued. I slowed my steps, and amid the growls of zombies, I cautiously tracked the sound to a small corner of the large warehouse, and in the time it took me to react, it seemed the person had already entered. Not just one person, and they were armed. Machetes, steel pipes, their weapons were smeared with dark red blood. Whether human or zombie, I couldn't tell. I slowed my breathing and blended into the darkness, worried that the electric baton wasn't powerful enough. I also pulled out a baseball bat, my palms sweating with nervousness, forcing me to grip it tightly until my knuckles turned white. If it was a person, or even a zombie, they were going to get a serious beating. The footsteps of at least two people were light and deliberate, the kind that showed they were trained. I didn't act recklessly, knowing that facing 1 versus 2 carried certain risks, especially since these two had survived in the outside world up to now. They wouldn't be easy to deal with. If they had malicious intentions, I would have to fight for my life. Bro, there's a lot of stuff here. Wonder which lucky kid lives here. Doesn't matter who it is, just kill them, and then this place is ours. Their voices exploded in my ears in the darkness. They were clearly after my life. The two continued talking. But, big bro, is that box really in this courier station? It doesn't seem like a very safe place. Those people, shut up. If the boss said it's here, then it's definitely here. Stop your yapping, or he might throw you out to feed the zombies. One of them seemed to have punched the other, eliciting a yelp of pain. What were they talking about? Something about a box. But I couldn't afford to think any longer. The silhouettes of the two, one taller than the other, were moving past the opposite shelves and were about to reach my position. I hesitated no longer, pulling out the electric baton from the holster at my waist, and with a sidestep over the shorter shelf, I planned to ambush them from behind. Just a shock to one of them would do. If I could take down one, I felt confident I could handle the other. These quiet days at the courier station had been punctuated by consistent exercise. It seemed I had the foresight after all. I stayed close to the lower shelves, gathering all my strength. Just as I was about to successfully flip behind those two guys, I stepped on something. Crack. The crisp sound seemed like a death sentence. If I had another chance, I would never leave an empty chip bag here. Who's there? I was exposed. I held my breath. The two men quickly turned their heads in my direction, but fortunately, the poor night lighting prevented them from pinpointing my exact location. Kid, just give up struggling. Kneel down, and call us Dad. Maybe our boss will be in a good mood and let you off. The shorter one kept referring to their boss, acting like a total sycophant. How could I do as he said? This courier station is a territory I fought hard for. I couldn't just hand it over. This place is my turf, and I know it like the back of my hand. It seemed that the short one was sent to scout ahead, clumsily making his way toward me, bumping into numerous parcels and creating a racket in the vast courier station. Shoo, keep it down. Don't attract the zombies. They seemed to fear the zombies outside more than they feared me. I gripped an electric baton in my hand, ready to zap the temple of the approaching man. Now, I jumped up instantly, circled behind him, and elbowed him before kicking him hard behind the knees with all my strength. He lost his balance and fell to his knees, gasping for air as I choked him. He weakly swung his fists, his face turning red. How about you kneel first and show me how it's done? I turned the electric baton to its highest setting, and the buzzing of the current was especially glaring in the darkness. The taller one heard the noise and ran towards me. I threw the stunned man on the ground away and quickly moved from my spot. Julian, where are you? You can't even handle this guy. The taller man muttered as he stumbled over Julian, who was already knocked out in the dark. Hearing the crisp slap he gave the unconscious man on the ground was music to my ears. I've only seen scenes like this in movies, 2 against 1. It's so unfair. I hid while mentally critiquing their lack of honor. The tall one, ignoring his fallen companion, began searching for me. I took the opportunity to hide behind a shelf 2 meters away from him, in a world overrun by zombies, with a scarcity of resources and people lacking vitamins. My night vision from regularly eating vegetables was definitely superior. If I remember correctly, the shelves next to him were stocked with potential weapons like rolling pins, belts, and ashtrays, which, although not professional weapons, were sufficient for self-defense. I must not let him find me, or my situation would worsen. Thud, thud. I intentionally made a noise to draw him away, watching as he moved further from his original spot, and I breathed a sigh of relief. Kid, are you playing hide and seek with your dad here? You better run fast, and don't let me catch you, because if I do, your days will be far worse than they are here. Frustrated, the tall man began knocking over the shelves in the warehouse like dominoes, scattering my neatly organized supplies everywhere. With my cover blown by the falling shelves, the tall man saw me and started coming towards me, stepping on debris. I noticed he was holding a sharp object, about the length of my forearm, a fruit knife. Was I hiding? Clearly, you're the one who's blind. I clenched a baseball bat in one hand and leapt over a desk nearby, meeting his knife attack head-on, but my weapon was more manageable. Just as I was about to taunt him, a sudden pain shot through my arm. I gasped sharply, watching as the person who had just been opposite me swiftly circled to my side, blood dripping from the wound onto the ground. You call that skill, kid? You won't survive the apocalypse with that. I took a big step back, aiming to create some distance, but the man relentlessly pursued me, giving me no time to recover. The already chaotic warehouse became even noisier with our chase. Suddenly, I heard the zombie's terrifying growl. It was louder than the usual weak cries, and it seemed very close, almost right beside me. The man heard it too and immediately stopped chasing me, looking around cautiously. Zombies have excellent hearing. The man's earlier knocking over of shelves, followed by our noisy chase, had inadvertently made a lot of noise. I hadn't had a chance to closely inspect the area where we had entered, and I didn't know if the zombies had already found the gaps, or worse, zombies might already be inside the warehouse. As I scanned the warehouse, My pupils dilated when I saw figures twisted and shambling slowly. They were zombies, and not just one but three. This was bad. I hadn't even dealt with the man, and now zombies were adding to the chaos. This was my first time facing zombies at such close quarters since the apocalypse began. The tall man also saw the zombies and paused in his steps. Fortunately, zombies have poor night vision and mainly rely on smell and hearing to locate their prey. As long as I kept my breathing slow and moved quietly, it shouldn't be a big problem. Clang! Suddenly, a metal rack crashed down beside me, making a loud noise, and I couldn't help but frown. Here, you're welcome. I didn't need to guess to know that it was that man's doing, and I cursed under my breath. The zombies, hearing the noise, began to move towards me, constantly making hissing sounds. Their bodies were soaked in blood, and even severed limbs didn't seem to affect them. With a disgusting blue liquid flowing from their mouths, I needed to block the hole the zombies were using to get in, or more would keep coming. I also threw heavy objects around to distract the zombies with the noise. When I got to the hole, to my surprise, the tall man had already thought of the same thing and had started to block it. Bro, I feel so dizzy. This exclamation startled both me and the tall man, reminding us that there was another person who had fainted in the space. But it was too late. Julian, unaware of the situation, woke up cursing loudly at me, his voice as loud and foul as could be, making me, who had intended to warn him, shut my mouth. Attracted by the noise, the zombies pounced towards Julian. Julian's struggles only invited more brutal attacks, and his screams went from loud to faint. I knew he wouldn't survive, and I couldn't bear to watch anymore. The activity had further torn the wound on my arm, sparking a thought in me: zombies, being mindless creatures, were easier to handle than professionally trained humans. Perhaps I should let the zombies take care of the tall man first. The tall man seemed accustomed to the sight of zombies attacking humans, even if the victim was his companion. He showed little reaction, but seeing this only made me feel colder. While the tall man was distracted by the zombies, I ran towards a spot where there was a pale yellow bucket, which I needed. Having raised chickens and ducks at the courier station for so long, I adhered to a principle of not wasting. I diligently cleaned their droppings daily, using traditional methods to make fertilizer. Over time, I had accumulated enough to fill a bucket. Due to the strong smell, I usually sealed the compost bucket in a place far from where I slept, but I had planned to open the bucket and fertilize the fields today anyway. I deliberately brought the bucket back. And now it's just a few steps away from me. As I opened the compost bin, an overwhelming stench hit me, nearly making me vomit on the spot. The zombies also detected the smell and began to search. I took off my clothes, which were already stained with blood from a wound on my arm, carrying the distinctive iron scent of blood. Without hesitation, I submerged my clothes in the compost bin, stirring 3 times to the left and 3 times to the right. When I pulled them out, they were completely transformed, but this was exactly the effect I wanted. Now, this piece of clothing was the perfect lure for the zombies. As long as I used the clothes to draw the zombies toward the tall man, I would achieve my goal. Suddenly, a scream, echoed. It sounded like it came from the tall man. I didn't pay much attention. After all, I was familiar with this courier station. Using the tools at hand, I set up a trap. Anyone walking by would get their feet caught in a retractable collar, immobilizing them for a few seconds, which was enough. The tall man seemed injured and was moving slowly, deliberately avoiding the roaming zombies. This gave me ample time to prepare and think. How should I lure him over? My mind was racing. From their earlier conversation, these two came to the courier station looking for a particular box, which seemed urgent and important. Although I didn't know what the box looked like, everything was too dark to see clearly. I emptied a storage bin used for small courier bags, which was just the right size. The battery on my wristwatch phone was running low. I took it off, turned on the flashlight, and placed it inside the storage bin. The pale blue storage bin emitted a faint glow in the darkness, incredibly conspicuous. The trap was set near the storage bin, as I expected. The tall man noticed the glowing bin and rushed toward it impatiently. The box, it's the box. Like a starving wolf pouncing on an injured hare, greed and urgency were unmistakable in his eyes. Why was he acting like this? I grew increasingly curious. Things went smoother than I anticipated. The tall man got caught in the trap. How is there a trap? How did you know about the box? I grabbed a rolling pin nearby and struck him on the temple. The tall man groaned and passed out. Physical attack. Always effective, less talking. I draped the foul-smelling clothes over the tall man and, worried he might wake up too soon, tightly bound him with rope. The zombies, attracted by the smell, surrounded the still unconscious tall man. The scene that followed was something even I, having survived a second apocalypse, could barely stand to watch. It was over, now, I just needed to deal with the zombies. I weighed the rolling pin in my hand. A direct headshot. Taking out 3 zombies at once wasn't realistic. Maybe it was better to just lead them away from the courier station peacefully. After all, there were plenty of noise-making objects in the station. I quietly went to the chicken coop in the dormitory and grabbed a lucky hen. The hen seemed to sense the danger to its life and clucked incessantly. I found a fishing rod from the courier items and tied the hen's feet with the fishing line. Like fishing, I lured the 3 zombies. Watching the zombies intently stare at the hen, I broke into a cold sweat. Cluck, cluck, cluck. The zombies were drawn to the hen's clucking and obediently headed to the cave entrance. Thankfully, the fishing rod was long enough. The 3 zombies staggered after the panicked hen out of the cave entrance. Seizing the moment, I threw the fishing rod toward the entrance, and the hen's increasingly frantic cries echoed. The 3 zombies quickened their pace, howling as they chased after it. I took a moment to silently mourn the little chicken before sealing the hole tightly with an iron plate. I kept moving heavy objects to block the entrance until I was sure it was secure. By then, my strength seemed to have been drained, and I collapsed to the ground, my heart pounding uncontrollably. It turns out that zombies, straightforward as they are quite simple compared to the cunning of humans. I'm doing pretty well, I assured myself, patting my chest in an effort to calm down. The collapsed shelves, the gnawed remains of humans, the glaring wounds on my arm, and the howling zombies just beyond the wall, all these made me truly realize the collapse of the world around me. The sun rose as usual. With the lessons learned, I paid even more attention to the security of the courier station. Despite poor sleep and dark circles under my eyes, I began to reinforce the station again. I couldn't afford any carelessness this time. Discovering many previously unnoticed weak spots that could easily turn into breaches with just a push, frightened by how many vulnerabilities there were, I realized I was lucky to have survived this long. The recent finds had given me more than enough resources to patch up these vulnerabilities. Witnessing zombies devouring humans was a huge shock to me, with the gruesome scenes haunting my mind. It's terrifying. Who knows what the future holds for humanity? The stock in the courier station was dwindling, and even though I managed to sustain myself through chicken farming and gardening, my skills were just enough to keep me alive. I reorganized the collapsed shelves and sorted the courier boxes by size. Before reinforcing the walls, I also cleared the station of the 2 mangled bodies. Everything returned to normal, with the experience from before. I doubled the time spent on physical exercise each day, encouraging Jonathan to join me. When I shared my experiences with Jonathan, he was shocked and blamed me for not informing him, as he would have risked everything to help. I knew his character well. He would have done exactly as he said, but I didn't want that. After all, Jonathan still had his parents to think about, and I was alone. Opening packages every day brought me anticipation, and I even found joy in the surprise of blind boxes. Today's package was a small box, unlikely to contain anything interesting. But when I opened it, I was stunned. Inside was a living animal. A Brazilian turtle stretched its neck, seemingly soaking up the long-missed light. Its tiny eyes, the size of green beans, squinted into slits. If it hadn't moved just as I opened the box, I might have doubted it was alive. Excitedly, I named the turtle Little Tortoise. It was a quiet animal, easy to feed and care for. Perfect for a pet in these apocalyptic times, having Little Tortoise around. I couldn't fall asleep at night without chatting with it, a rare relaxation in these dire times. Adhering to my principles of no waste, I limited myself to opening just 2 new packages each day, which often contained interesting items: a complete set of exam papers from the past 5 years, a DSLR camera, sports equipment, and even a gaming console with a fitness ring that I had wanted before the apocalypse. The heavy set of exam papers, I thought, represented the power of knowledge. Even in the apocalypse, I couldn't give up on learning. Once it's safe again, I planned to give these study materials to a lucky survivor facing college entrance exams, reigniting their passion for testing. Thinking this way filled me with hope for the future. As for the DSLR camera, equipped with a storage card, it's perfect for documenting everyday life. This is a real record of humanity's fight against the apocalypse. Millennia from now, these will be as precious as the Terracotta Army. Day 90 of the apocalypse, the temperature is starting to drop. I usually plan to exercise with Jonathan, but the equipment is scarce and not very effective. The new delivery seems to be from a gym that just bought new gear. In addition to specific equipment, there are pairs of dumbbells of various weights. I sent Jonathan some food with a drone and also sent over a pair of dumbbells, forcing him to work out with me, staying comfortable in our own little bubbles. We wouldn't be prepared for unforeseen future incidents. For this reason, I not only exercise daily but also practice how to fight zombies on a gaming console. The console I started up had several single-player games pre-downloaded, which don't require an internet connection. With headphones on, I don't have to worry about the noise attracting zombies. Bored, I played through each game, mastering all types of games to the highest level. If there were a leaderboard, I'd surely rank high. One of the games, called Dawn of the Vanished, is a survival game set in an apocalyptic backdrop, almost identical to our current reality. Using a fitness ring, I wreak havoc in the game, looking quite impressive. Zombies would have to detour around me. I must admit, playing this game really reduced my fear of the apocalyptic world and even made me look forward to future days. Who knows? Maybe the real zombies outside are as easy to deal with as the ones in the game. The dormitory's farming venture is also going smoothly, with eggs available almost daily, and newly hatched chicks breaking out of their shells. Their constant chirping gives me a headache. Day 123 of the apocalypse, and it's getting colder. Fortunately, there's plenty of clothing in the delivery, so I manage to stay warm. While we're not short on food, our cooking spices are running low, out of necessity. I've learned many new recipes and even tried making pickled vegetables like the old folks at home used to. After consulting Jonathan's parents, I managed to pickle some Chinese cabbage. Pickled vegetables last a long time, so there's no worry about food wastage. Besides, it's been so long, I kind of missed this taste. After fermenting for some time, I eagerly opened the jar of pickled vegetables. I must say, I have a bit of a knack for this. The first batch turned out crisp and tasty, with just the right amount of saltiness, perfect for an extra bowl of rice. I sent some to Jonathan using the drone. Upon trying the pickles, Jonathan instantly showed a surprised and pleased expression. "Bro, these pickles you made are delicious. Can you send me some more? I only made a small jar. Save some for me. And let your parents have some too." Jonathan chuckled, said he understood, and took the pickles to the back room. Seeing Jonathan with his family, I felt a bit envious. Although the delivery station lacks nothing, being alone feels incredibly empty and lonely. I don't even have someone to talk to. While Jonathan's family doesn't have much, being together, they seem to manage whatever hardships come their way. Just as I was about to move away from the window, Jonathan's voice came through the watch. "Bro, fly the drone back here. My parents want to send you something." Curious, I continued operating the drone as Jonathan instructed. Then, with a wave of his hand signaling me to take off, I controlled the drone to return. The moment I got the bag, I was overjoyed. It was filled with dumplings, each plump and white, the stuffing so full it seemed about to burst through the skin, likely just cooked, still steaming hot. Making dumplings was too cumbersome and I didn't know how to prepare the filling. I had almost forgotten what dumplings tasted like. I couldn't wait and took a bite. Scalding hot, the pork and scallion filling was dizzyingly delicious. "Jonathan, why did you suddenly make dumplings?" "Bro, it's Chinese New Year, of course. We should have dumplings." I was stunned for a moment. It turns out it was already the new year. Taking advantage of the new year, I allowed myself to open 10 packages. Considering them my New Year gifts, I skillfully used a utility knife, and a variety of packages appeared before my eyes. What are these things? Sometimes, when luck isn't on your side, even opening packages can be bizarre. These women's socks, a Bluetooth speaker, cosmetics, disposable takeout boxes, size 35 women's shoes. Is there anything I can use? Just one left. I searched high and low in the warehouse. A squarely shaped package caught my attention. I had unpacked a square nightstand a few days ago, judging by the shape. This might just be the other half of that nightstand. I choose you. I lifted the box and surprisingly, it was much heavier than I expected. Even for a regularly exercising adult like me, it was quite a struggle. This heavy, the shipping must have cost a fortune. That's the courier's instinct. The sender's name on the package was blurry and hard to make out, and the address was from a rather remote place. Recipient. No recipient. This package was strange. In my time as a courier, It was the first time I'd seen such a package. This piqued my curiosity. What on earth could be inside this package? I found myself unconsciously tense. Using the utility knife, I sliced along the seam and lifted the cardboard sides to reveal the contents. A heavy-duty metallic box with a silver lock appeared, looking very high-tech. Inside the box, there was yet another box. I carefully took the silver box out of the shipping box. Unexpectedly, the outer layer wasn't just paint. It was actual metal, quite heavy, and I almost tripped. It seemed not to be made of silver but a stronger metal, though the lock appeared imperfect as if it had been tampered with. This combination confused me but also made me more curious about the contents. Recently, two people came to the parcel station, seemingly for a box. Could there be a box more intriguing than the one before me? I was certain this was the box they wanted. What could possibly be inside this box that they would come to my little courier station despite the hordes of zombies outside? The lock clearly showed signs of damage, making it somewhat unstable, which undoubtedly facilitated my opening of the box. I used the tools I had gathered over time for my lock-breaking endeavor. After trying a rod, a kitchen knife, pliers, and even attempting to pick the lock with wire as seen on TV, I found a household drill in the corner and successfully opened the box. Wiping the sweat from my forehead, I finally saw the contents of the box. Is this some kind of test tube medication? Inside the box were neatly arranged vials of various colors. This is a bit anticlimactic. I thought there would be some kind of Ultraman transformation device in here. I hesitated to meddle with the unknown contents of the box, so I closed it and put it back where it was found. Deciding not to deal with it any further, lying in bed that night, the more I thought about it, the more peculiar those vials of chemicals seemed. Why would ordinary chemicals be stored in such a specialized container unless they were something of great value? In my previous life, I had died shortly after the zombie apocalypse began, so I had no idea if the government had developed any countermeasures later on. However, I remember hearing that the government had anticipated the apocalypse quite early on, though they hadn't predicted the exact timing. It was said that they were actively researching countermeasures and antidotes, but something happened that prevented their successful development. What exactly had happened? I couldn't help but be curious, although I considered the possibility that the box might contain something like a zombie serum. It seemed illogical that something so crucial to the nation would end up at my small delivery station. Plus, I was even able to open the lock. It was all too strange. The more I thought about it, the more confused I became, so I decided to just go to sleep. 24. I might be saved. I finally encountered a human organization. As usual, while patrolling the area with a drone, I spotted an armed helicopter. The helicopter landed on the rooftop of a tall building, and a group of soldiers in military uniforms disembarked to survey the area. The helicopter was quite far from my delivery station. Had it not been for the drone, I wouldn't have noticed it at all. It seemed the nation hadn't given up on us after all. I tried to use the drone to catch the soldiers' attention and guide them to my location. The soldiers were cautious, probably not expecting to find any survivors after the apocalypse, so they didn't follow immediately. Fortunately, the leader of the soldiers was authoritative and ordered them to follow the drone. I controlled the drone, leading the soldiers toward my delivery station. Along the way, the signal was inexplicably disrupted, making it difficult to control the drone, and even the surveillance feed was lost, which was very strange. Just when I was getting anxious, voices of humans suddenly came from the entrance of the delivery station. Is there anyone alive in there? We are sent by the nation to rescue you. If there are any survivors, please let us in immediately. They had arrived, even without the drone's guidance. They had managed to find my location. I almost immediately went to open the door, but as I approached, I hesitated. Something was off. The drone's last visible feed showed the soldiers were still about 10 minutes away from my station, so how could they have arrived so quickly? 25. I decided to test this group claiming to be the National Army. Hold on, I'm opening the door. The lock is a bit rusty, so it's taking some time. I just burned a beacon fire. How did you find this place? After hearing my question, the people outside seemed to discuss quietly for a moment before one of them replied, "We headed straight towards where you lit the beacon and saw signs of human activity here, which led us to you." They were imposters. These were not the people I had led with the drone. I had told a lie, and foolishly, they had built their story around it. I hadn't noticed before, but now, observing through a purposely left gap, I saw that their uniforms didn't resemble our national military standard issue. They were not here to find survivors. I hesitated. Should I open the door or not? Just then, the leader spoke again. Survivor, the zombies are increasing outside, and we have injured companions who need urgent treatment. We hope you can open the door quickly, boss. Should we just blow the door open? It seems like they don't want to let us in. Keep it down, don't let them hear you. I had already heard everything. Loud and clear, it seemed they wouldn't leave easily regardless of what I did. I stopped responding and instead hid in a corner of the warehouse I had prepared as a hiding spot. The people outside stopped hearing any response from me. It seemed that he knew his lies had been exposed, so he immediately decided to launch a forceful attack. 3, 2, 1, breach, boom, the door of the courier station shattered in response. Fully armed troops easily stepped through the door of the courier station I had guarded for a year. Big brother, should we look for the box first? Yeah, he's no threat on his own, let's find the box first. Why is it always about the box? When I reinforced the courier station again, I set up several new traps, hoping these small devices would stop them. I hid in a corner and saw someone trigger a trap, getting caught by a rope and hit on the head by a heavy object. But for an army fully clad in protective gear and helmets, this was merely a minor annoyance. I cursed under my breath in frustration. They began to recklessly search through the warehouse of the courier station, particularly focusing on parcels shaped like boxes. I was almost certain that the silver box was their target. Luckily, I had hidden it well, and they couldn't find it immediately. Just as I thought about moving, the board I was using for cover was removed. And I found myself face to face with the leader of the group. Nice weather we're having, isn't it? Have you eaten yet? The man grabbed my throat, his grip tightening. I struggled to breathe as the dizziness from suffocation hit my brain harder with each passing moment. Where's the box? The box? Cough. Only I know where it is. If you kill me, you'll never find that silver box. It took all my strength to say this as the feeling of suffocation intensified. I specifically mentioned the silver box to let him know I had indeed seen it. He loosened his grip, but his fierce expression didn't change. I had no doubt that if I didn't hand over the box, he would kill me. Find the box, bring him to me. I lay on the ground coughing uncontrollably, gasping for air, tears involuntarily streaming down my face. I pretended to search around the warehouse. What should I do? I couldn't possibly defeat so many trained humans equipped with sophisticated weaponry. Escape. Impossible, with hordes of zombies outside and these men carrying sniper rifles. Was I truly doomed, not to die at the hands of zombies, but to be killed by my own kind? I couldn't accept this. The man in charge, seeing my slow movements, approached me. I don't have the patience to wait for you to search slowly. As he spoke, the barrel of his gun pressed against my forehead. I'll give you one more chance. Where is the box? Just as I was about to speak, the person in front of me was suddenly kicked away, flying past me like a shooting star. What an astonishing turnaround. Another group of well-trained armed personnel ran out from where the explosion had occurred, wearing the true national military uniforms. I noticed one of them holding my drone. So these were the people I had seen through my drone. They had found me. The two groups clashed, and the National Army quickly gained the upper hand. I was saved when their leader stood before me. I was still somewhat dazed. Hello, no need to worry anymore. From this moment on, the nation will ensure your safety. Now, after the fight, the courier station was in ruins and no longer habitable. I remembered the silver box, so I asked the person who claimed to be a general to wait. I retrieved the box and handed it to him. When the general repeatedly verified that the medicine inside the box was intact, his eyes filled with tears. Thank you, you have saved humanity. I was stunned. From the general, I learned that these few vials of medicine were the antidote developed by the nation in preparation for the impending apocalypse. Just a small amount of this diluted solution could restore clarity to humans infected with the zombie virus. Anticipating the outbreak, the country had established specialized laboratories early on and assembled researchers to work tirelessly on finding a cure. These vials represented the culmination of all the researchers' efforts. However, as the research team was transporting the original antidote, they were ambushed and killed, and the box containing the antidote was stolen. The thieves, who had somehow learned about the antidote, planned to use it to extort the nation for a fortune after the apocalypse erupted. The nation engaged in several clashes with these criminals. Meanwhile, the thieves cleverly dispatched a newcomer to ship the reagents via courier, using a fake box to mislead the military. When the apocalypse broke out, the box was left behind at a transit station and was not moved in time. The lab was sabotaged, leading to the infection of the researchers by zombies, making it impossible to produce new antidote. Hearing this, I finally understood the nature of the disaster spoken of in a previous life. Everything became clear. Time passed quickly thereafter. Jonathan and I were rescued, and a large military force efficiently cleared the city of zombies. This city then became the central control city for the surrounding provinces and the only one that was absolutely safe. Soon, based on the antidote in the box, a serum for the zombie virus was also developed. Joyful news of regions being reclaimed came in steadily. The intense tension I had felt began to gradually dissipate. A sense of relief characteristic of peaceful times started to return. For my role in preserving the antidote, I was awarded the highest national honor, ensuring a lifetime of prosperity and honor.